dumbest thing in the history of sports that we saw last night? You have absolutely got to be kidding me. Did we actually see what we think we saw last night? Or is this just a nightmare? Please, please, for the love of God, tell me what we saw happen last night isn't actually a thing. Welcome into Wire to Wire. I'm Cole Bryson. So good to be with you on this Overreaction Monday. I am still solo today and the rest of this week as Diesel on his vacation or staycation. But my goodness freaking gracious. Did you see that last night? Did you Tolos watch what I watched? How on earth, and I mean how on earth, does a football game end in a tie? Okay, little league, I get it. Middle school, I get it. Ninth grade football, getting late on a Thursday night, I get it. But surely, surely there's no way the highest level of sports, the National Football League, surely there's no way we are dumb enough to have the rules set up to where they can end in a tie. There's no way that's possible, right? Oh, unfortunately, yes, it is possible. In a freaking NFL game. Are you kidding me? The highest profession, the best of the absolute best, and we're okay as a society letting an NFL game end in a tie when all over the country, all over the world, we have all these problems in the sports climate, politically, you name it. Well, by God, this should be the biggest problem right now. That we're going to sit at home for 4 hours. We're going to sit and watch a product and give that product 4 hours of our time, and you're telling me we're okay letting that thing end in a tie. You give me a break. How on earth is that even a rule? That is the dumbest rule. The NFL seems to be okay to adapt and figure out how to get better. And maybe it's just because my Cowboys were involved is a reason I'm so upset about it. And maybe that's why. But come on, give me a break. There's no way we can just be okay with this as a society, is there? As sports fans, are you okay with this? Ending a football game in a tie? How much money do we think was spent last night? How much money do we think was spent on sports gambling, on tickets, on production, on salaries, on you name it, entertainment, on beverages, food? How much money do we think was spent in totality for one Sunday night football game? I would say an ungodly amount of money, right? Millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars spent for this one Sunday night football production, and we're okay as sports fans saying, you know what? To heck with it. Just let the freaking thing end in a tie. There's just no way we should be okay with that. The amount of money invested, our time invested, not to mention the fact that it was a great game, not to mention the fact that it can have playoff implications. We're just going to let it end in a tie. I mean, that is the dumbest thing I have ever heard in my entire life. What is this, middle school football? Is this upward where we can't keep score anymore? Did people give out, stars after the game for their performance and sportsmanship? I mean, it just made me so mad watching last night. And again, maybe if my team wasn't involved, I wouldn't care. But goodness gracious, what an absolute joke. That's where I am. All right, rant over, I promise, for now. Again, welcome in to an Overreaction Monday, 97.1 FM in Spartanburg, 97.7 FM in Greenville, also on the Odyssey app and the iHeart Radio app as well. You can watch the show on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. The Hub City Spartanburgers text line is open as well at 844-326-3663. Let's see what the Tolos are saying on the stream. Kane says Detroit Lions back on top of the NFC North. Dewey says, first off, ties should not be allowed in the NFL, period. Kev said, you should have let me fill in for Diesel. You should have. You can. All of you Tolos actually get to fill in for Diesel. That's just a fact. You all get to fill in for Diesel when he's out. You all get to text the show. You all get to call the show. Kev says, at least your team didn't lose to the Bears. Well, that's a good point, too. Oh, no, wait, we did last week, Kev. We actually did lose to the guy who paints his fingernails. Let's see here. Matt Kraft says, actually, ties shouldn't be allowed in any sport at any age. That's like giving both teams participation trophies. I agree with you, Matt. Josh on Facebook. My goodness, a ton of interaction already coming in on the stream as well as on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line. Again, 844-326-3663. Good to hear from you, Tolos. Josh says, the NFL needs to adapt a system similar to the NHL for regular season overtime. Leave overtime the way it is, 10-minute rules, everything the same. But if I'm still tied at the end of overtime, put the kickers out there at the 45-yard line and have a kickoff. Every time a field goal is made, push back 5 yards until a winner is decided. Josh, you know what's funny about that? I don't hate that comment. I really don't, Josh. Appreciate you leaving that in on our Facebook stream at the Fan Upstate. I don't hate that. I know it is similar to hockey in the sense, but man, NFL kickers have evolved. I mean, we can kick. Did you see that kicker that Green Bay, the kick that Green Bay made last night from 53 or whatever? It literally looked as if the guy was kicking it from the 10-yard line. Dead center, plenty of leg. I mean, goodness gracious. That's a fun idea, though, Josh. That's better than my idea of letting the head coach of each team just run and see who finishes first or passes out, right? Matt Graff says, like flip a coin or rock, paper, scissors, do something. Yeah, I agree with that. Do something, man. Kev says, I bet 100 on the over. Dewey says, I mean, both teams suck, but come on. No, what are you talking about? MD75 says, makes me want to vomit every time I see it. Kane says, a win is a win and a loss is a loss, but a tie is a loss for both participants. They both deserve it, though. Kev says, yeah, the Cowboys are equivalent to an upward team. Their defense is. Their defense really is. T Swizzle says, how about them boys? T Swizzle, bring it on, man. I'm upset about it. And the reason I am upset, and I'll get to the text line in a second, a lot of text coming in already as well. It feels like a loss. Like, in no way, if your team has ever tied, in no way should you be happy. If I'm Dak Prescott, if I'm Jordan Love, whoever it is, there's no way, no shape or form you should be okay or content or happy with a loss. You just shouldn't be. I mean, with a tie, rather. Because, like I said, it feels just like a loss. It really does. You're what? Now the Cowboys are 1-2-1? I mean, are you kidding me? It's absolutely the dumbest thing in the world. MD75 says 2 upset picks in a row for me. I'm going to retire now. Yeah, we will have some upset pick results a little bit later in the show. Jamie says overtime should have a set amount of time, and whoever has the most points at the end of the time period wins, not first to score. Well, that's the problem with the NFL overtime. It does have a certain amount of time, but if it's a tie, the time expires, and you're left with what you're left with. Why are we not doing it like college football does it, where there's not a time set? You just can't. My whole problem is you can't allow fans to experience as good of a game as they watched last night, and then all of a sudden just say, nah, heck with it. To heck with it. Let them tie. I mean, come on, the dumbest thing in the world that last night. On the Hub City Spartan Burgers text line, 844-326-3663. Corn Chip says, Clemson does not have a swim. Oh, sorry, this is an old text from the Rob Brown show. Let me make sure I'm reading from the right show. Texter says, as a fan, I'd be livid, especially if I was there. Oh, yeah, no doubt. That's a good point, Texter. Imagine going to the game, spending thousands of dollars on tickets, spending thousands of dollars on a hotel room, right? And then the game just ends in a tie. That's a good point, Texter. Really good point. RJ on the Hub City Spartan Burgers text line says, staying up that late to watch a game involving your team end in a tie is ridiculous. If we can decide winners at the high school and college levels, we have to do the same for the pros. Another texter says they should do like college, but start at the 40. Tennessee Tyler weighs in. He says it's not just because the Cowboys were involved. That's why I don't pay that much attention to the NFL, because of stupid overtime rules. Keith and TR says at least your team didn't have a single player directly result in 2 returned touchdowns. Oh, you're talking about the Colts guy, Keith and TR? What a brutal day for that guy. Goodness gracious, you're right about that. Is that who you're talking about, Keith? I think it is. Drops the football before he gets in the end zone. And then Keith and TR, correct me if I'm wrong here. He's the one that had the holding call on the 60-yard touchdown run, right? That would have won the game. Like, that guy should be fired. Get him off the team, right? RJ says start the kickers at the 35-yard line and go from there to break a tie in overtime if they go past 10 minutes. So that's an interesting point, RJ. And who was the other texter that brought that up? Or I believe it was Josh on Facebook. Are you Tolos? Are you football fans out there? Would you be okay with that? Would you be okay with kickers deciding an NFL game? So here's my whole philosophy on that, because Josh brought it up on the stream and RJ brought it up on the text line. Here's my philosophy there. I don't hate the idea of kickers deciding a game if it naturally plays out that way. What I don't want to do is artificially manufacture the overtime to where kickers are the only ones allowed to decide a football game in which they're not involved most of the time. Does that make sense? Kickers aren't involved in the scoring of football games near as much as obviously the offense. So I don't love the idea, Josh and RJ, of having kickers only decide the game in overtime, because the quarterbacks, the running backs, the wide receivers, so many players dictated the game and the outcome. So many players either performed really well or performed really poor, which led to that game going into overtime, right? So I don't want that game in overtime to then be decided by non-football players and a kicker. And yeah, I said it. They're not football players. They're kickers. It's a completely different game. It's a completely different position. I don't mean that if your son out there is a kicker, don't come yelling at the radio. But I don't mean that in a derogatory manner. I'm just saying let's not manufacture overtime to where it's only decided by kickers. Hey, it's real simple. College is doing it pretty well, right? Nobody's upset with the collegiate overtime rule, so why are we making it any different in the NFL? Why are we making it any different? So going back to the hockey reference and how they do overtime, I understand that it's penalty shots or whatever, but you're not bringing a different position player onto the ice and allowing that position player to dictate the outcome of the game. It's still the same player on the ice having a shot on goal, right? But in the pros, it'd be a kicker deciding the game. I want the players on the field who have dictated the flow of the game all game long to dictate the outcome of the game. Keith and TR says, yeah, A.D. Mitchell should have had a walk back to Indianapolis. Yeah, that was that's what you call a bad day at the office, Keith and TR, right? A really, really bad day at the office. That guy, like I've heard an old coach say one time, just play your game, but don't be that guy. And Mitchell, sadly, was that guy in a bad way, right? So it's pathetic. It's ridiculous that you now look at a record and see the Green Bay Packers are now 2-1-1. It's ridiculous that you look at the Cowboys record and you see that it's now 1-2-1. Ultimately, I think there's way too much money involved. Way too many fans give a crap. And I understand, to like the texter's point, that there are some people who don't care for the NFL. I get that. Excuse me. But there are a lot of people that do care for the NFL, and I'm one of them. I love the NFL. I just don't want to dedicate 3 to 4 hours of my time to a game, and then that game end in a freaking tie. That's the dumbest thing in the history of sports. Dak Prescott said it after the game. We'll have this audio later in the show, but he said, man, I don't even know how to feel right now. I've never been involved in a tie. Dak Prescott in his, 8 years, however long he's been in the National Football League, had never been involved in a tie. And probably never will be again. Unfortunately, that's the way the rules are set up. That's the way the rules are set up. It's stupid. It's unfortunate. No sporting event that a score is kept in should ever end in a tie. So if we're keeping score, no. I mean, guys, think about it. That feels like something stupid you get mad at your youth league about on a Saturday morning before you go get hot dogs, right? Like, oh, Johnny's game ended in a tie, right? Uncle Dean and the other guy were fighting in the parking lot after the youth league. That's what it feels like. Just to say out loud that the highest level of football, we're okay with just allowing it to end in a tie. Give me a break. Dumbest thing ever. Absolutely stupid. The Packers last night were good offensively, not good defensively. Neither team was good defensively. My Cowboys, man, Dak Prescott, what a night he had. Cowboys defense is atrocious. What a good game it was, though. Back and forth, ends in a tie. A loaded show coming your way, Tolos. We're going to get into the South Carolina Gamecocks in the very next segment. We have Daily Wires coming up at 3:45 at 4 o'clock. We will dive into the AP Top 25. We'll be joined a little bit later in the show by Grayson Mann of TigerNet.com. I'm going to ask an absurd question at 4:45 to you Panther fans out there. Overreaction Monday, 5 p.m. A lot of college football in that hour as well. We also have a sports soundtrack for you coming up at 6 o'clock. MLB playoffs are set. Oh, my gosh. You know, the only thing that makes today better as a Braves fan, you're entering this postseason as a Braves fan, and your team's not there. But the only thing that makes this day sweeter, the New York Mets. The New York Mets in June had the best record in baseball. Yet, guess what? They're not in the post. Is that not crazy? Not in the postseason. You can't make it up. You cannot make it up. Gonna get into South Carolina, Kentucky. Gamecock fans want to hear from you. What were your overall thoughts on South Carolina's performance in the win against Kentucky? We'll get into it next right here on the Fan Upstate. Man, we have a lot to get into today, and I mean a lot. NFL, college football, oh my word. So much to get into. Jay Taz on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line brought up a good point. He said, would they allow the game to end in a tie during the Super Bowl? I don't think so. That's my point, Jay Taz. You're exactly right. How do you allow any game to end in a tie? It's absolutely ridiculous. Ridiculous. I think I just added an H onto that word. And there's no H there, FYI. Appreciate you, Tolos, being a part of the show today on this Overreaction Monday. 844-326-3663 is the way you can get in touch with the show. South Carolina now 3-2 on the season after a win Saturday in Columbia, 35-13 over Kentucky. Gamecock fans out there, want to hear from you on the stream, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. 55 people in the chat, in the stream right now on the three platforms. Again, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, at The Fan Upstate. Also, want to hear from you on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line. Gamecock fans, 844-326-3663. Phone lines are open as well. Don't overreact yet. Save that for 5 o'clock. But if you do want to talk Gamecocks, would love to hear from you. So I'm watching the game Saturday night, and tell me if I'm wrong here. Gamecock fans, look, a win's a win. You'll be happy, especially in the SEC. Any way you can get a win, you'll take it, right? However, when you look at this game, I'm sitting there watching this on Saturday. I was at a big sports venue, sports bar, restaurant, watching it with like hundreds of other people. And yeah, South Carolina's winning the game. They're up, 28-10, I believe, at the half, something like that. 2 defensive scores. So, again, you'll take the win any way you can get it. But I'm not a Gamecock fan, so I don't know how you felt out there watching the game. I just felt like, okay, you're winning the game, but here we are again in this same situation, in the same scenario I felt like this team was in back in the Virginia Tech football game, right? Where in the SEC, you just can't rely consistently on your defense and special teams to make to have scoring plays in the manner in which they did Saturday night. Again, not saying you won't take them, you'll take them all day long. But can you consistently, through the course of an SEC season, can you consistently rely on your defense to score? Gamecock fans want to know where you stand now on Mike Shula. 844-326-3663. Now that you're 3-2, 1-2 in the SEC, where do you stand on your offensive coordinator? Do you feel like the offense was better on Saturday? Because, frankly, not trying to be a hater, but I don't think it was better. I really don't. Lenora Sellers was 11 of 14, 153 yards, 0 touchdowns. He didn't throw any picks, so he did take care of the football. But your quarterback wasn't like the reason you won Saturday. Oh, and by the way, your quarterback was also your leading rusher. Oscar Attaway and Rashul Fajan, where the heck have they been? 7 carries for 26 yards, 8 carries for 23 yards. What's happening right now? You're not running the football. Yeah, you're beating bad teams like Kentucky and Virginia Tech, but you're in those games. You're having to rely on the defense and special teams to win. That's just not going to get it done next week against LSU. It's not going to get it done against Oklahoma. It's not going to get it done against Alabama or Ole Miss or A&M. This offense somehow, some way has got to figure out how to get going. They just look like I hate to say this, they kind of remind me of Clemson's offense early in the season. Didn't have much of a run game. Quarterback wasn't really doing a whole lot. Again, want to be very clear. In the SEC, you find ways to win, you'll take it all day long. But I just want to know from you Gamecock fans, number one, where you now are, where you stand on the season at 3-2. Do you feel better about your season now after that win? And then number two, also, where do you stand on Mike Shula? Did the offensive coordinator do anything better on Saturday to make you feel better about his job he's done? I don't think so. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think so. Again, you say, Cole, we scored 35 points. Yeah, your team did score 35 points, but how many touchdowns did your offense score? Well, Rasul Fajan had 2 short touchdown runs, right? Matt Fuller had a touchdown run. Lenora Sellers didn't have a touchdown. So your offense scored, 21 points Saturday? And then your defense scored 2 touchdowns. So your offense scored 21. Your defense scored 14. That's where you get 35. So if you just look at it, take away those 2 defensive scores, you won 21-13. Cutter Boley for Kentucky was horrible, by the way, on Saturday night. He was not good. Seth McGowan had a touchdown for Kentucky. So, look, I realize that if you're a Gamecock fan out there, you may be saying to me today, well, Cole, you'll take a win any way you can get it. And I completely understand and agree with that sentiment, but nothing you did on Saturday offensively should impress you. And you know what's crazy, man? Like, if you're going to have that game where the offense impresses you, you'd think it'd be against Kentucky. But no. What are you going to do when you're playing LSU's defense and Oklahoma's defense and A&M's defense and Alabama's defense? It's not anywhere close to where it needs to be. The offense isn't. And great, you got 2 defensive touchdowns. You telling me you're going to be able to get 2 defensive touchdowns every game in the SEC or special team? No. You'd like to. That's just not realistic, though. It's not realistic to expect that every week. Hope I'm wrong. Hope your defense does give you 2 scores. JB on the YouTube stream says TOLO. That stands for turn on, leave on, by the way. I had somebody at a football game Friday night ask, what's TOLO stand for? Turn on, leave on. That's what we ask you to do each and every day on this very show. JB says the offense sucks. I don't think Shula is the answer. I still think they don't win 6 at most. Dewey says 4 and 8. JB says they had to have that win to have a chance to get 6 wins in a bowl game. I still say 5 and 7, says JB. And yeah, you're right. They did have to have. I mean, they really, really needed that one if you want to make a bowl game, because like we all know, it gets much, much, much more difficult for South Carolina. You got the win. You'll take it. I just don't really see a lot offensively that excites you, Gamecock. Again, tell me I'm wrong. 844-326-3663 on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line. Ty from Gaffney, good to hear from you, Ty. He chimes in and says, I feel like Lenoris took a few more runs on his own. I could tell he was aggravated with Shula. So let's look at the stats. He had 14 carries, Ty, and again, we don't know of those 14 rushes he had as the quarterback, how many of those were designed, how many of them were scrambles. You said it. Maybe you feel like he did have a few more on his own, but man, that's kind of like what people were screaming last year when the season started. It's funny how fans can change their tune, because when the season started last year, Lenoris was running all over the place, right? And everybody was saying, well, we can't do this. We can't continue this way. Lenoris is going to get hurt. We've got to stop it. We can't continually have our quarterback run like Rudolph. And then you fast forward a year, he's not running. Mike Shula comes in. He did have 14 rushes on Saturday, though. That's significantly more than normal. And then all of a sudden fans are like, hey, we got to run this guy more. Yeah, maybe you just don't put this guy in a box, talking about Lenora Sellers. Maybe you just let him be him, right? And maybe they're getting better in that aspect. But I still don't look at this team and think, man, their offense is getting better. Man, Shula's getting this thing figured out. I just don't. And again, you do try to give the guy time, to give the offensive coordinator time to figure this thing out and get better. But my goodness, think about it this way. If Mike Shula is this bad with Lenora Sellers, what's he going to look like without a guy or without that guy? If he's this bad with Lenora Sellers, what's Mike Shula going to look like with another quarterback? That's what's scary. That's kind of what's scary. JB asked, is it too far-fetched to say Ole Miss and Vandy play in the SEC title game? That's a good question. Is it too far-fetched? Maybe not. Maybe not. But maybe so in the same sense. That's a good question. Ole Miss and Vandy in the SEC title game. I remember when Ole Miss was terrible. And we all remember it wasn't long ago. It's a good question. Madcraft answers and says no, because Bama and Georgia are still around, and Georgia's the only one with an SEC loss. He also says Bama is looking like week 1 was a fluke, as I predicted. You might be right there, man. You might be right. Maybe it was just a blip on the radar. Let's see here. On the Hub City Spartan Burgers text line, texter says, I don't feel better about the team because that was a bad Kentucky team. Shula needs more creativity with designed runs for Lenoris. Dow Loggins had it figured out. And texter, I think you're right in the sense of that's kind of how the way that's kind of the way I think you should feel if you're a Gamecock fan. I never want to be the guy that tells you how to feel. But if you're a South Carolina fan, you just can't watch what you saw offensively Saturday and feel good about it. And you're right, texter. It was a bad Kentucky team. Real bad. And like I said a minute ago, you would have hoped that South Carolina's offense could get it going against that bad Kentucky. They didn't. Again, they had to rely on their defense. Without the defense and those two scores, it's a close game. Texter says, I'd say 8 wins. Texter says, we always play to our opponents. It's going to be close games, if not wins down the line. Dylan Stewart's going to step up these last couple, especially if he wants to make the draft. That comes from Alex and Greer. And yeah, Dylan Stewart hasn't had this season that I think a lot of South Carolina fans had hoped for, right? Does a lot of that have to do with the fact that he is getting double-teamed almost every play? I don't know if it's almost every play. It feels like it. It does feel like he's getting double-teamed just about every time. But nonetheless, we said it after the very first game against Virginia Tech. There's talent on that football team. There's talent there, but it just doesn't feel like the coaching staff in 2025 is getting the most of the talent. And I'm sorry. And look, I've been on record multiple times saying how high I've been on Shane Beamer. I like the guy. But I don't think this year's coaching staff is doing that good of a job getting the most out of the guys they have on the roster. I just don't. I don't think they are. Not saying they're not developing, not saying they're not trying, not saying they're not working hard, because I know they're working hard. But you just don't feel like they're getting the most of this roster. I think there's injuries. Yeah, sure. There's been guess what? Your offensive line, guys going down. Sure. That's football. Happens to every team. It's part of the sport. Part of the sport. I don't want to hear that. Well, we had injuries on the offense. Yeah, I know that. But before the offensive line got injured, they still sucked. They still weren't being developed. I think Lonnie Teasley and Mike Shula have got to step up. I think they've got to get more out of the guys that they have. I really do. I really do. Continue to hear from you, Tolos, at 844-326-3663. Daily Wires is coming up next. It's the top headlines of sports right here on Overreaction Monday.
the best local sports. The Fan! 97.7 FM Greenville, 97.1 FM Spartanburg. Always streaming wherever you are on the Odyssey app. The Fan!
Upstate.
Leave your namby-pamby sports takes at the door. Call in if you're man enough.
844 Fan Phone. This is Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson on the Fan Upstate.
Tell me you don't listen to this show without telling me you don't listen to this show. Because after I just go on that rant about South Carolina and how they need to get more from their talent and how they're not maximizing their talent, texter on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line pretty much says, hey, well, what about Clemson? The text reads, as opposed to Clemson getting the most out of their talent. Well, texter, that number one tells me you don't listen to this show much. So welcome to the show. Appreciate you listening. Maybe it's the first time. And if so, I'm glad you're here. But if not, you've probably heard me bash Clemson and bash them a lot this year. So let's not sit here and act like this is only about South Carolina. That segment was specifically about the Gamecocks. We're going to spend plenty of time about on Clemson as well. And yes, we all know Captain Obvious, Clemson's not getting the most out of their talent. We all know that. But that segment was not about Clemson at all. Listen to the show a little bit more. Maybe you'll hear me talk about how bad Clemson is and how hard I've been on Dabo Swinney. But appreciate the text. Let's see. Let me read Dylan from Simpsonville. I like this text. Dylan, appreciate you listening to the show, man, and appreciate you interacting as well from Simpsonville. Dylan says, I've noticed that it doesn't matter what team it is. Beamer always says it's going to be a fourth quarter battle. Like, why can't we just blow out a team? Why does it always have to be a fourth quarter battle? It doesn't matter if it's Wofford or Alabama. Your thoughts, maybe? That's why we always play down to our competition. Again, from Dylan in Simpsonville. Appreciate that. Really do. Alex and Greer says, who do you think is the better quarterback so far this year out of Cade and Sellers, and who do you think it would be better before the season? I think before the season, Alex, by the way, good text, good question before we get to our daily wires real quick. It's a great text. Before the season, I felt like both would have a really good year, but I did feel like Lenoris, because of his legs, would be the guy that I would rather have on my roster just because of what he can do with his in the run game. Unfortunately, he hadn't really now, I know he had like 80 yards or whatever on Saturday. But I don't think through the first few games, I don't think he's been allowed to be himself. Now, Cade's been absolutely horrible, so I'd still take Lenoris today. I would still take Lenoris Sellers today over Cade Klubnik. I don't know that anybody right now in their right mind would take Lenoris, would take Cade over Lenoris. Let's see here on the stream. DB says, Cole, you need to check your DMs. He's got an early treat in there. Never know what that's going to be. But I'm assuming you mean upset picks, right, Dan B? Upset pick results. Upset picks, baby. Dan B is the man. I'll tell you this, a little teaser, Tolos. How about on the other side? I will open the DM. Dan B has slid in the DMs. I think it's with the upset picks results. I'll open them on the other side. How about, well, we'll see who I did not hit this weekend, so not looking forward to that. My game did not hit. T. Swizzle says, we didn't lose or tie this weekend. Positive weekend. Talking about Clemson. Yeah, you're right on that. All right, let's get into it. Top headlines in all of sports. What's happening? What happened over the weekend? Tolos, appreciate the interaction already on the show today. I'm solo. Diesel on vacation or staycation this week, whatever you call it. Rory McIlroy. He knows he got the last laugh, but boy, a little frustration in the Ryder Cup this weekend. Rory said, I think golf should be held to a higher standard than what was seen out there this week. Golf has the ability to unite people. It teaches you how to respect people. Sometimes this week we didn't see that. So, no, this should not have been acceptable in the Ryder Cup. So, Rory not liking the chirping. Not liking the chirping. Rory, get over it. People are passionate about seeing their country win, man. Get over it. Let Bryson do the crying. He's the one that's usually supposed to do the crying. Bob Melvin, whose option for the 2026 season was picked up in July, has been fired as the manager of the San Francisco Giants. The Giants were very streaky in their 81-81 finish this season, teasing fans with playoff hopes with a 13-3 run from late August into early September. So already a firing in the MLB. Bad news for the New York Giants. Golly, man, Malik Neighbors, you hate to see that, don't you? Such young promise from that player. Announced today, season-ending ACL tear in his right knee. Brian Daboll announced that earlier today. So, boy, that leaves a massive, massive hole in this New York Giants lineup after starting Jackson Dart, getting all that momentum, and then losing that guy. Hate that for Malik Neighbors, really do. Really, really good player. Also, on the injury front, Baltimore Ravens coach John Harbaugh said he didn't know the severity of quarterback Lamar Jackson's hamstring injury, which heightens the concern surrounding the club's worst start in a decade. They lost again yesterday. Jackson left midway through the third quarter of Sunday's 37-20 loss to the Chiefs. And, boy, doesn't look good right now in Baltimore. Doesn't look good at all. How about Bobby Petrino? Wow. Somebody brought this up in the stream earlier. Bobby Petrino started overhauling his coaching staff at Arkansas on Monday morning. Sources told ESPN's Pete Thamel, firing 3 defensive assistants just one day after being named the Razorbacks interim coach. Sam Pittman was fired over the weekend, and Petrino's blowing it up. Travis Williams dismissed as the DC. Deke Adams, defense line coach, gone. Assistant Marcus Woodson, gone. I mean, goodness gracious, things are just moving fast in Arkansas. South Carolina defeated Kentucky 35-13 on Saturday at home. The Gamecocks now 3-2 on the season. Clemson at Boston College game time has been announced. Clemson Tiger fans, in case you did not see it, the game next Saturday will kick at 7:30. Also, congratulations to Blue Ridge Tiger quarterback number 1, Gavin Forrester. He was named the Fan Upstate Player of the Week for his performance on Friday night in the win over Landrum. He'll join me on the show tomorrow at 6:40 p.m. And last one for you, the Carolina Panthers. Boy, what a bad loss yesterday. I mean, ugly. Oh, my gosh. Just when you thought the Panthers might be turning the corner, they fell to the Patriots on Sunday by a score of 42-13. Carolina now 1-3 on the season. Those are your daily wires, Tolos. Guess what? In the very next segment, we'll take a look at the AP Top 25. I also have a surprise in my DMs. That's right. Just what you were thinking there, Tolos. Dan B has gotten the results on the Upset Picks Challenge. I'll post them on Twitter and Facebook during the break at the Fan Upstate. We'll get into that as well next right here on Wire to Wire. I'm Cole Bryson, and we will continue the conversation. I want to hear from you, Tolos, as well on the Fan Upstate.
If you work a 9 to 5, you think you know better than career coaches making.
Well, Tolos, Dan B, the man, the myth, the legend, who does so much for the Upset Picks Challenge, he was on it today, man. Sometimes, he's busy. He has a job. He has a family. He has a life. Sometimes it's Tuesday or so. Before we get the Upset Picks Challenge standings in, but not this week, Dan B all over it. Tolos, did you hit this weekend? If you don't know, guess what? You go right now to the Fan Upstate on Twitter, also on Facebook. If you haven't done so, make sure you give us a follow on those pages at the. You can also follow me at the Cole Bryson, and you can see those standings right now. Where are you, Tolos? Let's see. Let's look. Dan B, again, big shout out to him for his work. But if you go to the Fan Upstate, like I'm doing right now, you'll see where you are on the board. I took a step back because, who was it? UCF could not pull it out against Kansas State. Deeply, deeply disappointed. But Dave Mosley did not hit. April on YouTube said finally he went down. So Dave Mosley finally cooled off a little bit. Let's look at some statistics real quick, though, regarding the Upset Picks Challenge. Dan B says 8 new Tolos to the challenge this week. So to the 8 of you out there who played and entered the challenge for the very first time, appreciate you. Appreciate you doing so. We love having you as part of the challenge. 1 fell off the board, 11 new on the board. Only 2 people with 3 in a row this week. No double-digit upsets this week for the first time this year. How about that? No double-digit upsets. 220 total players this year. Of those 220 Tolos who are playing, 122 of you on the board. And the last 3 weeks have been 139, 146, and 142 picks. So we need a big push this week when the Upset Picks Challenge opens again on Wednesday. A lot of fun, but let's look and see where you Tolos are real quick. Texter says, American fans threw a beer at Rory's wife. Unacceptable. That is unacceptable. I don't condone throwing beer at anybody or throwing anything at anybody. I promise I don't. I don't like the overboard stuff, but you know what? The chirping, I don't have a problem with. It goes, you cross the line. I mean, look, you cross a line, and if you cross the line, I think I can admit that you were in the wrong there. So let's look at the Upset Picks Challenge leaderboard. On the left side, we have Dave Mosley still leading the way with 55 points. Delvin has hit 3 times in a row. He's hot right now, man. He's all the way up to 23rd, but it goes like this. Starting at number 1 with Dave Mosley, USC, Justin, Bo from Greer, Canes, Transplant, Gamecock, Tim, Michael T., Rebel Vol 51, Keith and TR, Leprechaun of Lyman, Joey Bruton, Trey in Kentucky. That's your top 10. Tolo, Panther Boy, Hoosier Daddy, Puppy Monkey Baby, John Rhodes, Justin L., Nasty, F.U. Ashley, Jacob and Spartanburg, Frank Wagner, MD75. That is your top 20. Tigerville, Bo, Delvin, Philip Rollins, Jeremy Nix. That is your top 25. Percy, Scotty Mack, Spartanburg, Jay, Rory, and Spartanburg. Hope you're okay, Rory. Hope nobody threw beer at you. Kane, Shane, and Sugar Tit. Tim D and Easley. That's your top 30. Benny Bulldog, Steve Square, Jersey Joe, JWE, RJ, Tiger Pal Rachel, Brandon and Spartanburg, Tolo Phil, West Virginia Fan 214, Corn Chip, JC, Coach AJ, Isaac, Eric B, Kenny 387 in Union, Jaybird's Better Half, Lee Corso, Kevin Buggs, Michael, Gus Mosley, and Tall Tigers Fan 24. That is the top 50 in the Upset Picks Challenge. How about that? That's the top 50. I am on the board at 77. A long way to go for me. I'm telling you, man, a long way to go. Did Diesel hit? by the way? Let's see. Diesel. Did he finally get on the board? I don't think so. I'm looking. Let's make sure. I don't want to. Diesel. No, I don't see it. Dan B's all the way up to 67th, though. How about that? 9.5 points for Dan B. Dewey at 58, man. If Dewey can be on the board, Tolos, you can be on the board. See? If Dewey can do it, so can you. So that is that's the leaderboard for the Upset Picks Challenge. If you're listening right now and have not participated yet in the challenge, we'd love to have you a part of the challenge. RJ says, I heard that Clemson was a 10-point underdog last Saturday to the bye week. Any truth to that rumor? There might have been a little bit of truth to it. I don't know what the spread was on the bye week. I don't know, but there might be some truth there. And another texter said, no, the fans were a bit much at the Ryder Cup. So I would be mad too. Maybe they were overboard. And Tolos, I apologize. I wasn't really overly tuned in to the Ryder Cup this weekend. I care more about football than I do golf. So thank you for letting me know, Tolos, that the fans did go overboard. And if they did, I do hate that. I do hate that. But you know what? Boy, the game of golf, you have the fans right there on you. It's tough to expect everybody to behave, right? That's not giving them a free pass to misbehave, but you do hate to hear that. Hurricane Jeff says, I hit on the Illinois game. Since I'm on the road, would you be able to tell me what place I'm in? Yeah, I can, Hurricane Jeff. I can tell you what place you're in. Be happy to. You hit on the what game? Illinois? Let's see here. I'm going to start at the bottom. Oh, how about Bill Bender getting on the board this week? Hurricane Jeff, right? That's what I'm looking for. Oh, man, Hurricane Jeff. He says he's on the board. Dan B might have to help me. No, I found you. Hurricane Jeff, you are in 83rd place with 6.5 points. Not too far behind me. Thank you, Dan B. I'm sorry I wasn't looking at the stream when you put that on there. So you're on the board, but you're way back as of this week. But as I was saying, if you have not participated in the Upset Picks Challenge yet, make sure you do so this week, man. It's a lot of fun. Let's see if we can have a record number of Tolo entries this week. It will be a lot of fun. All right, let's get into it. AP Top 25 came out. It was released yesterday. Who moved up? Who moved down? Where do you think your team should be compared to where your team is? If you have not seen the latest top 25 in the AP poll, we react right now at 844-326-3663. Also on the stream, 74 Tolos watching right now on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Ohio State, no surprise, is still the number one team in the country. After their win over the weekend, it wasn't the prettiest in the world, but guess what? They got it done. And Ohio State remains number one. Tolos, do you think the Buckeyes are truly the best team in college football? I think it's hard. To argue that. I think they are. Look, I'm really high on Oregon. By the way, Oregon now at number 2 in the AP poll. They moved up 4 spots from where they were. I'm really high on Dan Lanning, really high on the Ducks. I think Oregon, Ohio State would be just a fantastic football game, as it was twice last year. Dan Lanning won in the regular season. Ohio State obviously got the last laugh in the college football playoff. But Oregon's for real. So if you have not seen the AP Top 25, it goes Ohio State 1, Oregon 2, Miami 3, Ole Miss 4, Oklahoma moved up 2 spots to number 5, A&M moved up 3 spots to number 6, Penn State fell 4 spots to number 7. So after the loss to Oregon, Penn State still in the top 10. Indiana moves up 3 spots to number 8. Texas moves up a spot to number 9. Alabama moves up 7 spots to number 10 after their big win over Georgia this past weekend. Alabama looked really, really good, by the way. So they move up 7 spots. Alabama now the 10th best team in the country, according to the AP poll. Texas Tech moved up 1 spot to 11. Georgia, after the loss to Alabama, fell 7 spots and are now number 12 in the country. LSU, my goodness. They dropped 9 spots after the loss to Ole Miss on the road. They're now number 13 in the country. Iowa State, 14. That's where they were last week. No movement there. Tennessee at 15. No movement there. That's where they were last week. Vanderbilt moves up 2 spots. And by the way, the Commodores still undefeated, 5-0. I don't think they're getting enough respect. I don't think they're getting near enough respect. 5-0, Vandy should be higher than number 16, shouldn't they? Same thing with Georgia Tech. They're 5-0. And they moved down a spot. Vandy 16, Georgia Tech 17. Florida State dropped 10 spots to number 18 after the loss to Virginia on Friday night. Missouri, again, maybe a little bit disrespect there. They're 5-0, but they're only 19th in the country. Michigan dropped a spot to 20th. Notre Dame moved up to 21st. Illinois at 22. BYU at 23. Listen to this. Who would have thought the Cavaliers of Virginia, number 24 in the top AP poll, and Arizona State 25? What's your reaction to that, Tolos? At 844-326-3663. If preseason I told you that on the 29th of September, neither Clemson nor South Carolina would be in the top 25, but Virginia would be in the top 25, I don't think you'd have had that on your bingo card, right? I don't believe anybody saw that one coming. Virginia with a huge win over Florida State that catapulted them into the top 25. Let's see. JB on YouTube says Oklahoma is not the number 5 team in the country. These polls are ridiculous. Indiana isn't top 10 either. JB also says, I don't see how anybody died in all that mess at Virginia, Mad. We'll see how for real Vandy is this weekend. They beat Bama, and they'll be a top 10 team come Sunday. He also says Clemson's next coach is coaching Virginia right now. Talking about Tony Elliott. You think that's Clemson's next coach, JB? I don't know, man. I don't know. I will say, to give credit where credit's due, Tony Elliott, the job that he's done at Virginia, no other coach in college football had to deal with what Tony Elliott had to deal with in his first few seasons. To be able to battle and stay the course through that rough time and now be, 4-1 on the season and have his team in the top 25. I'm not going to go as far as JB as what you said in terms of him being Clemson's next coach. Who knows? You never know. Obviously, having ties there and being the offensive coordinator would be interesting. But, man, just to see the job he's done. So, my reaction to the AP Top 25, I don't know about Oklahoma yet. I think with John Mateer, they're definitely a top 5 team. However, they don't have John Mateer right now. So how long they remain in the top 10 without their quarterback due to the hand injury, I think that's going to be interesting to watch. Who does Oklahoma have this weekend? They're 4-0. Let's see. Oh, they've got Kent State Saturday. So ultimately, they'll be fine until next week. Then the next Saturday, they play Texas. Then they're at South Carolina. Then they host Ole Miss. Then they're at Tennessee. Then they're at Bama. Then they're hosting Mizzou. And then they finish with LSU. What a brutal rest of the schedule. What a brutal rest of the schedule for Oklahoma. I mean, that is a tough road right there. So if they're going to somehow, some way stay in this AP top 25 or have a shot at the college football playoff, man, they're going to have to get that quarterback back quick, because that is an absolute brutal schedule remaining for Oklahoma. So that's interesting. I do think Vandy's being disrespected a little bit in the AP top 25. Right now, they are 16th. They moved up 2 spots, but them and Georgia Tech, man, I think they're being disrespected a little bit. 16 and 17. They're both undefeated. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams ahead of them with a loss. I just don't know, man. I don't know. I think there might be a little disrespect there. Let's go to the phone lines, 844-326-3663. Who we got?
Hey, it's Guy. How are you?
What's up, Guy? How are you?
Good. Do you remember even the BCS didn't weigh in until October? I mean, I'm thinking of how all the talk was as to who was the Heisman candidates those first weeks in August, and who are we talking about now?
You're talking about as far as the Heisman goes?
Any of it. I mean, what did Notre Dame have to do to fall out of the top 25? Whereas what does Vanderbilt and Georgia Tech have to do to move up? I mean, they are both ranked over Notre Dame now, but
right.
Notre Dame was 24 at 0-2.
They were 0-2, and they had not fallen. I think, to your point, though, Guy, the Heisman conversation is so interesting, because kind of going off of what you were saying before the season, it was Cade Klubnik, Garrett Nussmeier. We had all the conversation about these guys, and now you're talking about Dante Moore of Oregon being the favorite, Ty Simpson at Alabama being in the conversation, Fernando Mendoza at Indiana now being in the top conversation, Carson Beck still getting attention. But no, you're right. Ultimately, man, from what we thought pre-season, how about Arch Manning? Where's that conversation gone now, you know?
Well, in fairness to him, I mean, he was under scrutiny when he was a zygote. So, I mean, what are you going to do with him? So, yeah, I feel really bad for him. I mean, he came out of Manning. He wasn't going to just be in high school. So,
thanks for the call, Guy.
Take care.
Appreciate you, man. 844-326-3663. It's a good conversation, though. AP top 25 right now. It's the AP poll, and there's a lot of, what about this team? What about that team? We all know the college football playoff poll is the only one that matters. But, man, to think that Georgia Tech and Vandy haven't done enough to be in the top 15 of the country right now, that blows my mind. You've got 6 teams ahead of them. I think those are 2 teams that are sitting there thinking, what else do we have to do? We're 5-0. We'll see, though. We'll see. Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com. You hear him every Monday at this time. He'll join the show next right here on the Fan Upstate. Every single Monday at this time, we bring on Grayson Mann of TigerNet.com to talk Clemson football. I am solo today, so Grayson, you're stuck with me the entire segment. Thoughts and prayers to you before we start. But Clemson on a bye this weekend. What possibly could a Clemson beat writer do when his team's not playing?
So Saturday, I went out and played some golf with
Wow.
Jackson Childress of the Roar, Toby Corson of Tiger Illustrated, and Griffin Barfield of Clemson SI, and we shot 5 under through 18. Pretty solid performance, I would say.
Best ball, or what was it? I mean, how'd you perform?
We're doing a best ball. I think I did okay. I think that my driving game has improved significantly, Cole, and that was an issue starting out. I don't think that my short game is where it should be, but overall, solid performance from myself on Saturday. I felt like I contributed to the team, hit a couple clutch shots, couple clutch putts to secure some birdies.
I'm proud of you, man. I'm proud of you. Not a bad day on the course there. Clemson obviously on a bye, and here we are now, Grayson, on the 29th day of September with Clemson 1-3, looking to make something of this season. You've had some time this past weekend to reflect on the start for the Tigers. What do you feel like's the biggest takeaway in your mind from what you saw in those first four?
Yeah, the word that I keep using is jarring. And I think it's no longer this shock value of, man, I can't believe Clemson has dug itself in such a hole. You sort of use the week to look back at past problems. And I think for Clemson, a lot of it was the same issues talking up. The defense isn't where it should be. Some of the technique, maybe the receivers, you go down the list. And there was always a short or a small fix that Sweeney used to sort of patch a hole in a tire, if we'll use that analogy. And this year, it feels like everything's come together at the wrong time. And LSU, you could sort of make the justifications, or if you're a fan, you're hoping that's a really good LSU team. I think we're discovering it's probably not a national championship contender, but certainly one that could compete for the playoff. Troy was probably when the concerns really started, for at least on my end, that, man, this may not be a very good football team. And so
Sure.
I sort of, as I reflect on the last 4 games, Cole, and what makes me excited about the next 8, and it's weird to say 1-3, why would you be excited? But this is a new era for Clemson football. It's no longer the giant of the sport that should be considered to be a title contender every single season. There's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of weeds in the backyard that need to be trimmed. There's a lot of care that needs to be put. Not that there isn't, but there's just a lot that needs to be fixed. I don't think there's one easy answer where Clemson's 4-0 or 3-1 instead of 1-3. And so that was my main takeaway. I rewatched every single game and came away with the same issues. Quarterback play isn't where it should be. A lot of whiffs defensively. Not the biggest fan of some of Garrett Riley's decision-making and play calls, but overall I don't think he's public enemy number one. So there's just a lot going on, and I think that there's an interesting perspective on how Clemson attacks these next 8 games. I think UNC is going to tell us a lot. This team's had a lot of time to simmer the result and accept the fact that this is not a playoff season. How does that team respond moving forward in a game that people will watch more because they're waiting to see which coach collapses further into the hole?
Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com, joins us on the Fan Upstate every Monday at this time. 97.1 FM in Spartanburg, 97.7 FM in Greenville, and on the free Odyssey app, as well as iHeartMedia app. Grayson, when you look at where Clemson is, I want to know, because we're either in one of 2 spots. The time you've had to reflect, where do you stand? Where do you land? We're either in, this is just a bad year, a blip on the radar, and Clemson's going to be back to where they have been, contending for national championships in a couple of seasons. Or we are either in, this is the beginning of the end when it comes to the Dabo Swinney era at Clemson. We're in one of the 2. We don't know right now which one we're in, but the fact of the matter is we're in one of the 2, and there's a 50% chance, a 50% chance we're in either one of them. Where do you think we are right now at this point based on what you've seen?
I guess I'll push back a little bit. I think the beginning of the end was in 2021. I think when Clemson started 4-3 and you really started to see the cracks forming and Clemson wasn't contending for the ACC. And that started to become a consistent trend. Obviously, they reclaimed their crown in 2022, but then you have 2023, another 3-loss season that turned into 4. You lost to South Carolina multiple times in this stretch. I feel like we've been tumbling down a mountain, and occasionally Sweeney would find himself, as he's fallen, catching this stump. And that was either Matt Luke, that was either the perceived Tom Allen move, that was Garrett Riley. So I do think that, Cole, when you look at it, Clemson's been in this program fall. It's just been very slow, and they were still able to find a way to make a playoff. They were still able to reach multiple ACC championships, but it's all kind of crashed. So I guess you could classify this as the end, and a rebirth is going to be needed when we go to 2026 and forward. So I haven't viewed this as, this came out of nowhere. I think the problems have been very evident. This was just supposed to be that year that, if not now, when? And so I guess that second point is true, is that there's not this sudden fix of 2026. I think, they're going to be contenders. They'll be back into it.
Yeah.
There's questions moving forward. So I do think that the problems have been there. I don't think 2025 was, I viewed it as it's either going to be a title contending team and anything else is viewed short of a disappointment. I didn't expect 1-3, but it is sort of the culmination of a lot of issues.
Sure. No, I think that's well said. I'm with you. What do you believe right now the vibes are inside the program in terms of what you've heard, what you feel for Clemson fans out there that are just curious as to where this team is mentally? I mean, do you feel like they're in a better spot, or if you know of any riffraff or anything where you feel like there's been some upset guys inside the program?
I think last week's fascinating, Cole, and I'm so excited for tomorrow and just to see what's the tenor of Dabo Sweeney, as everyone's had a long time, and 2 weeks doesn't feel like a long time, but Syracuse was not this Saturday, but it's been a while since we've seen Clemson play on the field. So there's been time to swallow that tough pill. And it felt like on Monday and Tuesday, we got a lot of behind the scenes conversations with the players where we got to hear about how the team meeting went, how emotional it was, how raw. People were getting their feelings out. People were getting sort of just addressing the elephant in the room, and things were said. And it was a very honest conversation from what we've heard. And so I think, Cole, when I think about where this team is moving forward, it's either going one or two directions. There's either going to be total checkout or there's going to be a rally. And what does that rally look like in terms of wins? I don't know. But what I've seen on the field, and why you've seen a lot of chatter on social media, questions from the media, is about that effort specifically. Where is that going to lie against North Carolina team that you really, in all fairness, should be beating? Watching this team, there's a lot more issues with Bill Belichick than I'd say are with Clemson's program. They're in two different spots, obviously, talent-wise, and that's part of the big issue. But there's some weeds. If there's some weeds in Clemson's house, there are some animals that shouldn't be resting in Belichick's house. That there's a raccoon in the attic, and you're panicking with a broom trying to get it out of the roof. So there's a lot of Saturday's fascinating for a lot of reasons, and that's partially why.
And that brings us to Saturday as we start looking ahead, Grayson, to Saturday's matchup in Chapel Hill. Clemson on the road with this 1-3 start. You feel like this could be a game where you're going against a bad North Carolina team. Maybe we start to see a trend where this offense starts to figure things. I'm not calling for an App State game a season ago, to that effect, but a game in the sense of this offense looks drastically improved. Maybe that has to do with them being better. Maybe that has to do with North Carolina being bad.
Maybe you do get one of those. I mean, the Power 4 margins would tell us that Clemson's in for a comfortable victory on Saturday, but I guess you truly do never know. We have Ludacris performing at 9:45 in the morning, and I'm not a big Ludacris fan, but I know that there are people that would rather probably see him at 7:45 p.m. instead of 7:45 a.m. Interesting thing there, obviously off track, but I do see this as a game, Cole, and I hate to call it a must-win when the season's not. This is not a win for a playoff game. This is not a win for positioning in the ACC championship. This is a win where I think on paper there's a clear coaching deficiency, and it's weird to say that about Bill Belichick, but this is a very poorly coached UNC football team. Rewatch their game against UCF this morning. There's guys running into each other. There's just a lack of communication on all fronts. That's a big mess that Belichick's got to clean up in North Carolina. So for Clemson, you go in there, there's a lot, I think, more wrong with them than wrong with the Tigers. And there's a game that you have to win to go in there, restore some confidence. If it's bad now, I can't imagine that conversation Monday morning when we're talking about a really bad North Carolina. I think the average margin of defeat between the last two games, I think they've been outscored a total of 84-23. I mean, they have not been good at all. At least Clemson's had the losses of, okay, well, we've had a walk-off field goal and a 7-point loss to LSU to look at. North Carolina's got the brakes beaten off of them. And so that's to UCF and TCU. So there's some certain factors there. I just see this as a game that Clemson has to win. It would be pretty inexcusable if they don't.
A little bit of a format breaker here, Grayson. Right now, off the cuff, who's the best team in the ACC?
Oh, goodness. I would have to be inclined to say Miami right now.
Okay.
Even though I'm a big Georgia Tech believer, I do think they escaped on Saturday in Winston-Salem. There was an absolute ref show over there with the offsides call. Robbie Ashford was furious, and rightfully so. But Miami, to their credit, they've taken care of business, and that's been my biggest critique with Mario Cristobal, is that sometimes in the games that they really should just comfortably stride by, they're barely hanging on, and then eventually someone kicks them off the cliff, and Miami tumbles and tumbles. Their defense has gotten a lot better. Carson Beck's playing really solid football. I think Florida State is, unfortunately, Friday night's tough. I'm not going to give them too much grief for a loss to a Tony and Elliott Virginia team that is not going to get enough respect nationally. That's a good Virginia team. Chandler Morris can absolutely sling it. And Friday night on the road is difficult. I think Clemson fans were worried about that Louisville game. That's exactly why. Exactly what happened on Friday with the Cavaliers and Elliott. Yeah. Big win for him, by the way. I know a lot of Clemson fans have been pining for him to be back on campus, but he looks like he's building something special there.
It's really interesting when you look at the landscape of the ACC, Grayson. There's some interesting stories, and certainly North Carolina, one of those for all the bad reasons. You know, I think this whole North Carolina thing's fascinating because when you and I were at ACC kickoff, I had a couple of North Carolina players on, and one of the defensive backs that I had on, I asked him just straight up. I said, look, do you think this Bill Belichick guy, as old as he is, can come in and turn this program around? And he looked at me and he asked me, he said, well, what do you think? And I said, I don't really think he can. I said, I think he's the best coach ever in the National Football League, but it's a different sport. It literally is. And to be fair, it's been 1 year. I don't know how long Bill Belichick is going to give it at North Carolina, Grayson, but do you see this thing? You talk about Clemson turning it around. Do you see North Carolina turning it around under Bill Belichick?
Certainly not this year. I don't envision some 7-8 game win streak that starts with the Tigers. Maybe they surprise me on Saturday, but UNC was entering this season with a massive talent deficiency. I know Belichick went on a shopping spree in the transfer portal, but that was a lot of the leftovers just because of the nature of when he signed on. All of the best players were really gone, and so they were having to pick. Basically, everyone, the tables were reserved at Logan's Roadhouse and Texas Roadhouse, and he was having to go to some C-tier steakhouse across the street, and his steak was undercooked. So UNC was at a depth deficiency to begin with, at quarterback, at wide receiver, defensive back, and you saw that in that TCU game where that transfer from, I believe, North Dakota State had a field day against one of their DBs.
Yeah.
I do think Belichick's the greatest coach on the planet. Smart individual, cerebral individual, and obviously a lot of the baggage that he carries may not be worth the wealth of knowledge and experience that he brings, and I think we're seeing that a little bit over there. It's a little strange to have your 24-year-old girlfriend on the sideline with you and warm-up drafting, where I can imagine a player's got a question. Hey, coach, oh, you're busy. Let me wait a second.
Sure.
But it's going to be interesting. I could totally see, it depends also, to answer your question, Cole, what does North Carolina want to be? Do they want to be a playoff contender? Do they want to win 8-9 games a season? We don't know that conversation that they brought. I know Belichick says they want to be the 33rd NFL team or professional team.
Right.
That pipeline is a little bit scrapped, rusty right now. I'm sure that travel would be pretty brutal. So I guess it just comes down to, what does North Carolina want Bill Belichick to be? That's the ultimate question.
It is. It is ultimate question. Grayson, man, TigerNet.com. One more question for you. When you look at this Clemson team, is it completely this is just a curiosity question here. Is it completely out of the realm of possibility for any coaching changes to be made, even if this thing were to get worse midseason? Or would you say that you expect Dabo to based on what you've heard, to wait until the season's over to evaluate everything?
A midseason coaching change doesn't really feel like that's his style. That's never been his MO. There's no precedent where, even with like the Kevin Steele, West Virginia disaster, you waited till after the season. Wes Goodwin, you waited till after the season. Brandon Streeter, you waited till after the season. Now, could it be made between the bowl game? Absolutely. If Clemson does make a bowl game, there has been plenty of precedent where he'll make a move, try to get him on campus. And at practice, Chris Rumpf and Matt Luke specifically were coaching in the Gator Bowl after those moves were made. So we could see that then. A massive overhaul, though, it just depends on where they are. If they're 5-7, maybe Sunday morning, we're getting press releases that certain people are being let go. But I think it would take either a nuclear disaster where, let's say, Clemson's 1-6 and there's no choice, or you wait till after the bowl game. I do expect changes to be made. I won't ever want to call from anybody's job, but I think with the way things are trending, there's going to have to be a change and shift in the program.
Grayson, how do you think Clemson, after this 1-3 start, can keep fans engaged? And I know fans will still buy tickets. I get that. But I mean, engaged to the point of where they were in the preseason. How do you keep or prevent fans from already wanting to know what's going to happen after the season while trying to keep them engaged in what could actually happen this season?
It's fascinating. I don't think the move will be made, but I think you make a change at certain positions and you start advertising the youth and the future of this program. And I think you and I both know where I'm going with this. You make a change of quarterback and you get fans to come in. How many times have we seen bad NFL teams that can't sell out a stadium? You bring in the rookie quarterback of the future and boom, you got thousands of extra seats filled.
Giants yesterday, yeah.
The Giants with Jackson Dart look like a completely different football team.
Yep.
Although Russell Wilson was playing terrible, but they beat the Chargers, who were the best team besides Buffalo in the AFC. So you try to advertise the future. Maybe there's more time for a guy like Amari Adams. Maybe Tristan Smith gets on the field more. Gideon Davidson, who, to Clemson's credit, and to be fair, Davidson's looked lost out there when he steps onto the field. Hence the more playing time for Adam Randall, who hasn't been bad at all by any means. He's been pretty solid at tailback. But there's just a certain amount of... And obviously, maybe if there's winning, they're going to be playing a good Florida State team, who I think will be in the top 25. They'll play a really good Duke team. They'll play a really good SMU team. There's going to be some intrigue because that's the ACC championship rematch. There'll be Clemson fans in Columbia for South Carolina, but it's going to be tough moving forward. And it's letting a lot of air out of the tires when you have a team that was a national championship favorite in many circles. They're out of it before October hits the calendar. That's tough.
It is tough. And then I'll let you go with this one. You brought it up just now with position changes, especially at quarterback. Like if you were in Vegas right now and had a bet on it, do you actually think that's a possibility?
Now, this is the caveat to the quarterback argument is if we haven't seen him yet, that's a pretty damning statement on the backup and the confidence level. Dabo has been Cade's guy for a long time. And so there's also the money involved, the NIL. It's tough to bench a quarterback that's making the top dollar on your team. So maybe if things get worse, we'll see 17. I've been advocating for it to not much success, just in terms of you got to get data for 2026. That's a completely different conversation for another time. But if we're having that conversation on September 29th in 2025, that season is not going well.
No, it hadn't. It has not. Making the trip, what are you looking forward to in Chapel Hill? You going to get out and explore any, Grayson?
So I got Tiger pregame in the morning for the Roar, so I got to kind of race over to the stadium and figure that part out. I've never been to Chapel Hill before for a football game. I've been to for basketball and been able to see that side of it. So I've been able to walk around campus. It's beautiful. So excited to return. Not looking forward to the drive Friday, but we'll be all right.
Sounds good, man. Appreciate you as always.
Appreciate you, man.
Absolutely. Grayson, man, TigerNet.com. You heard him right here on the Fan Upstate. If you missed any of it, you can go back and catch it on the free Odyssey app. AUDACY. I ask you, Panther fans in the Upstate, a really important question in the next segment, and I need an answer at 844-326-3663. Panther fans. I want to know from you at 844-326-3663. Also, for those of you watching on the stream, if you are a Panther fan, is it too early to start thinking about the T word? Is it too early to tanking? Is it too early to start thinking about maybe tanking on the season? And I know a lot of you out there will say, Cole, you should never tank. What a loser's mentality. Mark Schlereth even came on this show about a year ago and said, tanking? You don't tank. You build a winning culture. Well, that winning culture is not necessarily going the way the Panthers want it to go. And, the bad news is I just don't know if you can have the utmost confidence in Bryce Young changing this franchise around. Is Bryce Young a bad quarterback? I don't think he's horrible, but do we really feel confident? And I know he ended the season on a good note in 2024 last year. Ended the season on a high. I get that. But do we really feel confident that all of a sudden this thing's back to normal? No, I don't think Bryce Young. Here's where I'm torn. I don't even know that Dan Morgan truly knows without a shadow of a doubt that Bryce Young's the guy. I think he would like to say that he is. I think he might tell the media that he is, but I don't know that even Dan Morgan, the general manager, believes it to be the case. So, is it too early to start thinking about tanking on the season? You're 1-3. Your playoff hopes are pretty much shot, right? At this point, you're not making the postseason. You're not going to win the division. You've got to make a decision on if Bryce Young is your guy, period. Am I saying that this team is Super Bowl ready around Bryce Young and has all the other pieces? No. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is I don't know how many Panther fans out there are actually confident that this guy's the answer for the future. Are we going to allow a few games on the back end of 2024 to convince us that he is? You gave up so much to go get Bryce. And ultimately, I don't know. I just don't know if you really feel good about it today. I really don't. I think you've got to figure out. I think you've got to start looking at options and figuring out what you want to do as an organization, as a franchise. I like Dave Canales, but maybe you see somebody in the draft. Maybe you see somebody in free agency that you can go get and that can keep this franchise stable for a few years, kind of like the Vikings did with Sam Darnold, right? Even though he's now in Seattle. And I know Sam didn't work out for you guys, but the Panthers have just got to figure out now. They're faced with 1-3. They're not a good football team. They've got so many questions to ask. You've got to look in the mirror. You've got to have those tough conversations. And unfortunately, you don't really look at anything right now and see a lot of positive. I know you got Tedero McMillan. You feel good about him. But, guys, he was pretty much yesterday. He was, 4 receptions, 62 yards. Yeah, he's going to be good in the NFL one day, we all think. But he's got Bryce Young throwing him the ball. Bryce Young was 18 of 30, 150 yards, a touchdown, a QBR of 43.6. I mean, come on, guys. That's not good. It's not good enough. It's just not, plain and simple. So we'll see. Maybe they can figure things out and then and start winning football games this season. But maybe it's time to think about tanking on the season. Figure out who you like and go get them. Tolos, it is Overreaction Monday. Want to hear from you. 844-326-3663. The phone lines are open. Also, the Hub City Spartanburgers text line open. What did you see this weekend that you want to overreact about? It can be high school, college, or pro, but I want to hear from you next right here on the Fan Upstate.
on the Fan Upstate.
The Hub City Spartanburgers text line has just been set ablaze on this Monday, Overreaction Monday, in the break. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 text just in the course of the commercial break. It is Overreaction Monday. Want to hear from you at 844-326-3663. What is your sports overreaction? I'm seeing, man, a lot of down fans, upset fans on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line with the Gamecocks as well as the Panthers. So many. We'll get to them at 844-FAN-PHONE. But we have Dewey first up on Overreaction Monday. Dewey, what is your overreaction?
Yes, first of all, I have to be with you on the NFL tie game crap. That was a travesty on itself. But you know what? The Dallas Cowboys did it to themselves. They should have won the game. Enough said with that.
What do you mean they still won the game?
They should have won the game.
Oh, should have won the game.
Fourth down and 2 or 3 or something. They couldn't. They let them convert. They did it to themselves.
The defense sucks. The Dallas defense is terrible.
Well, they all suck. Green Bay ain't no better. But anyways, it was a waste. The tie game. I mean, we're not the NHL. That's why the NHL sucks. We got to do something better about that. We didn't watch 5 hours of football for a tie game or spend thousands of dollars to drink 65 beers and watch a tie game. That's kindergarten stuff.
You're right, Dewey. I can't believe I'm saying it, but you are 110% right on this one.
Well, and as far as the Gamecocks are concerned, they won the game. They did what they're supposed to do, but that should have been like 50-0 or something. The offense sucks. The North Sellers, I don't know what they got going on with him, but they need to let him play, or maybe he just needs to get better himself. The hype, they let the hype go to their head, and be quite frank, they're not going to win another game again until Coastal Carolina, and that might even be a challenge at that point, because by then the season will be done sank.
Dewey, do you feel better about Mike Shula and the Gamecocks offense after what you saw Saturday night?
No, that was terrible. Terrible performance. It's a team. It's a team effort, obviously, but your special teams and your defense are not going to score points off these other elite teams that they're about to play. And I know LSU is kind of suspect, but I can't. I don't think South Carolina's going to pull it off, because they don't have the offensive firepower unless they're just hiding it. So I don't know. That's going to be tough. I have to drink some beer and think about that one. And one other thing is, why in the world they ain't fired Brian Snicker yet? The season's over. He should have been canned the moment the last pitch was done. He should be fired. Yeah, they tore off 10 of the last 15 games or something like that, but they saved themselves from a 65-win season. Embarrassing. This whole season's been embarrassing, and a good job letting Charlie Morton play. I think that was really good. But other than that, Brian Snicker needs to be fired, and Topless needs to be fired, and it's time to look to next year with the Braves when they make their comeback.
Thanks, Dewey. What a phone call. It's one of those Mondays when you agree with Dewey on everything. Wow. Overreaction Monday continues. 844-326-3663. We go to Alan. What's your overreaction?
First, I want to say that I agree with too, and that's a rarity. But my overreaction may only be due to my age, and I don't understand the kids today. I was watching the Gaffney Spartan High game Friday night, and I don't know if you've seen them yet or not, but what are these bedazzled helmets that Gaffney's wearing?
What is it again? The Gaffney helmets?
Yes, they look bedazzled, they sparkly.
Oh.
I've never seen a helmet quite looks like this, and I don't know if you had seen it yet or not.
Well, I've seen them in the preseason. I'll see them in the regular season in 2 weeks. Is it things that they're adding to the helmets like stickers and stuff?
No, it's not, the helmet itself.
Really?
It looks like the whole thing is sequins or something black. It's weird to me, but I'm sure it's something that the kids like, and that's what's more important than what this old man likes.
Well, thanks for the call, Alan. Appreciate you, man. 844-326-3663. Whatever it is that you want to overreact about. Dale, you're next. We've got a lot of texts to get to on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line, and I mean a lot, but the phone does get priority. What's your overreaction, Dale?
So a few things. First, why can't we play a full quarter in overtime? Why does it have to be 10 minutes? I don't get that.
Okay. Well, let me comment on that. I don't care if it's 1 minute or 50 minutes. If it can end in a tie, I'm not for it.
Totally agree with you. The kids play until there's a winner. If there's 7, 8 overtimes, don't matter. They play till there's a winner.
Yep.
I think that half game, that tie right there, is going to be very detrimental to Green Bay, not so much Dallas. I think that's going to cost Green Bay probably a division. Second, I went into that game needing 70 points from Dak, from George Pickens, and Brandon Aubrey, and I got 78 to win my matchup. Woo!
What a weekend you had. Thanks.
Let me tell you, I texted my buddy and told him I only need 70. And he went to bed thinking he got that thing locked up. He woke up and he was like, I can't believe that. I told him.
Should have listened to you, man. Should have listened to you.
Sure should have. Anyway, yeah, ties in professional sports are absolutely ridiculous.
What do you think? But you're a Cowboy fan, Dale. What was your? What do you think about the Cowboys? Defense was horrible, but almost beat the Packers last night.
You know what? And here's the thing. I saw, again, 2 receivers running wide open down the sideline. And if the other Green Bay receiver caught it, that would have been a touchdown. He kind of pretty much ran into his own player and tackled himself. Eberflus needs to go. The only reason we were in that game is because Green Bay imploded right before the half, and we seized momentum there. What was it? 2 touchdowns in 32 seconds? That was a blessing.
Yeah.
We have so much false hope, it's not even funny, because the offense, I don't think, is that good. The running game is still somewhat suspect, and, Dak got away with an intentional grounding last night. I think it's a lot of false hope. I still think we're better than the Giants, and that's going to be proven true with Malik Neighbors now being done for the year. But that Scatterboo back, he's something special.
It's a real deal, isn't he?
Contact. He is a tough runner.
Yeah.
I don't know how long he'll last in the league because he's looking for contact.
Sure.
But boy, he runs hard.
He does. Thanks for the call, Dale. 844-326-3663. Overreaction Monday continues. We go to Tom in Somerville. Tom, what the heck do you have to overreact about, man?
Hey, I think that if the Gamecocks play defense like they did on Saturday, they're going to win a lot more games than Dewey is giving us credit for. You know, offensively, it wasn't great, but I saw improvement on the offensive line. And you know what? You got to take the small wins where you can get them. Any Gamecock fan knows that. And as we've been saying, good things will happen if Lenoris will just run. And we finally got to see that on Saturday. But, you know, the defense was spectacular. And I know Kentucky's terrible. But the defense forced two turnovers. They turned to touchdowns. They got 6 sacks. Like, that's what we expected to see, and we saw it. So I was happy.
But Tom, do you feel better about the offense, though? I mean, I just don't. I don't watch that, and
I don't think you can feel like a lot better about the offense. But the offensive line looked a little bit better, and that's really what I personally wanted to see was the offensive line take a step forward. And it wasn't a big step, but it was a step forward. And, I don't know what these next 5 games are going to look like, if we're being honest. I don't know what it's going to look like. But at least with Lenore's running, I got some sort of hope for this next 5 weeks. I think all you need to do is you need to win 2 of these 5. You find a way to win 2, maybe steal a 3rd one. You're going to make a lot of people really happy.
Which ones of the 5, which 2 do you think they win?
So I'll say this because we don't know what the status of John Mateer will be.
Yeah.
But if he
not looking good, though.
Exactly. If he does not play, I think it's a must-win.
Okay.
If he doesn't play, so give me Oklahoma, and then you're not going to beat LSU, but you can make an argument that it's probably the most winnable of the 5.
That LSU's the most winnable
of the 5, because let's be honest, I think you could probably get Alabama on the ropes, but what we've seen out of the defense until this past week, you're not stopping Alabama, and they still have a pretty good defense. Let's give them some credit. But then again, you play at night at Willie B, anything can happen. Anything can happen. So if I had to pick 2, I'm taking Oklahoma and I'm taking Alabama.
I like it, Tom. I like your optimism. I think,
and don't forget, people, we have seen the Shane Beamer teams just take off in October. His better teams at South Carolina, they find that stride sometime in October, and they look like a completely different football team.
Yeah, and for me, I'm with you there. I think for me, though, it's more about what Mike Shula's not doing than it is about Beamer. I watched Saturday, man, and I just that's the way I felt. I just don't see enough creativity. I said in the first hour, I don't feel like they're getting the most out of this offense, and I think that's on Mike Shula.
And I agree, but also at the same time on Saturday, did you really need to dig into that bag?
You didn't need to, but eventually you're going to have to, because this type of your defense scoring, I mean, can you really sustain that when you go through this gauntlet that you're about to go through?
No, you got to go in that bag of tricks some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
You got to figure it out. You got to get better. But the main thing is the main thing. You didn't play great. You still beat an SEC team by 22 points.
You're right. Tom, you're the man. Appreciate you.
Go Gamecocks.
844-326-3663. That's the way you can get in touch with the show. Madcraft says whack on the stream. Who are you talking about, Madcraft? There's 3 or 4 callers right there. Which caller do you think was whack? You phone lines are still open as you can react. 844-326-3663. A lot of overreactions to get to. Tigers Dakota says, just checking, have my upset picks been put in? I hit the last 2 weeks, and I'm still not on the list. So, Tigers Dakota, what I'm going to do is I am going to need, if you're still listening, I am going to need you to email me a screenshot of the text that you sent in during showtime. Mistakes are made, but if you will send in a screenshot of you and submitting your entry during showtime, you can email it to my name at thefanupstate.com. That's cole.bryson@thefanupstate.com. That's my email. So if you will, I'll text you during commercial break as well to make sure we get that fixed if we have made a mistake. But upset pick standings are on our social medias at thefanupstate.com, Twitter and Facebook at thefanupstate. A few more texts to get to, but calls do take priority. 844-326-3663. Who we got?
Oh, you talking to me? It's man.
Oh, I'm not talking to you. No, I'm talking to the guy over here next to me in the studio. I'm by myself, Madcraft. Who else would I be talking to?
Well, you should have gave me an invite. I could have been sitting there right next to
Listen,
you, maybe pushing buttons.
I've invited you for 2 hours and 15 minutes now. You have an invite all the time on this show. You know that. All you have to do is pick up the phone, use those minutes.
No,
I know you don't want to use.
I want to come sit in Diesel's chair. That's what I want to do.
All right, let me ask you this. If I made that happen, if I can make it happen, would you actually show up? That's the question. I don't think you would.
Yeah, I would. 100%.
You think so? You would? You're a man of your word?
Yeah, I would. Yeah,
Okay.
I would. But I'd be honest with you, I probably wouldn't touch anything because
touch what?
I don't know what I'm doing.
Equipment?
No, any buttons or microphones, or maybe I could talk to the stream.
Only buttons you'd be
I'm
pushing. Only buttons you'd be pushing are mine talking about the Braves because you're good at that. But other than that, listen. I might take you. I'm by myself all week. Who could be what Tolo could do the best job filling in? Maybe we give auditions. How about that?
Hey, how about that? Maybe we don't need Diesel no more. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, hey, listen, I was thinking about something. When I was at the beach a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not a long time ago, a couple of years ago. Me and my brother were out late at night, and we went out, walk onto the beach, and there just so happened to be a college party that was occurring at this beach. It was a huge crowd of college kids.
Okay.
And they seemed like they were having a good time. So I decided to walk myself into the middle of that crowd to figure out what all the fuss was about. Mm-hmm. And what they were doing was Omaha drills.
What drills?
With the Omaha drills.
Omaha or Omaha?
Well, same thing. You know what I'm talking about.
Okay, gotcha. Good.
But they were doing that with like college girls. So that's why they were having a big fuss about it. But that made me think about something.
Where is this going? Where's this phone call going right now? Are we going anywhere with this?
It is. What if we, at the end of NFL, if the overtime is tied at the end of that quarter, then instead of doing all these other ideas, what if we just did an Omaha drill shoot-off with the biggest players on your team?
Omaha, as you call it.
Come on.
Well, here's a better one for you, Madcraft. Here's a better one for you. And I said this earlier in the show, so I'm repeating myself, but here's a genius, novel idea. That or the kicking that somebody brought up earlier in the show. Hey, here's a great idea. Let the players who have made the plays all game just decide who wins in overtime, just like we do in freaking college football. How hard is that?
Well, exactly. The only simple solution is to go to a shootout in the style of 2-point conversions, which is exactly what college football is doing now. But I do think that you could do that without changing anything drastically. Keep the quarter. You don't have to change any of the rules if you don't want to so far. But at the end of that quarter, you cannot leave it as a tie. You have to do something. Like I said, flip a coin. Play a little Rochambeau, bro. Yeah. Somebody's got to do something.
It's bad. I mean, look.
Hey, I appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks, Madcraft. It's bad. And I don't just mean that. It is. I said this to lead the show today. The fact that you have millions and millions of dollars not only already spent, but at stake. I'm not saying let's cater to Vegas all of a sudden, but my God, do you realize how much money is spent on one Sunday night football game, from the production to the venue, to the tickets, to the marketing, to the beverages, to the food and concessions, to people at home, to venues, to restaurants. I mean, come on. Millions and millions and millions of dollars. And you're telling me that we're just going to end this thing in a tie? I mean, goodness gracious. It's pathetic. It truly is. It's like I said in the first segment. I mean, this is not fifth grade football that we're playing over there, on on the west side of town on a Saturday morning against Billy and Dean from across the streets, their kids versus your kid. This is the real deal, the highest level. We're just going to say, nah, it's an NFL game. We'll end in a tie. I mean, it feels like a loss. It really does. It feels like a loss. And as a fan, I think this is my first time experiencing a tie as a fan, at least in the recent memory. It's brutal. It's the dumbest thing in the world, dumbest thing in sports. The NFL has dumb things already. The kickoff thing, I don't love it. Whatever. I can live with it. But this is pathetic. Ending in a tie. Why even play the game? I mean, people sat there for hours and hours and hours on end, and you're just going to end it with no winner. What in the war are we doing here? Why even play it to begin with? A lot of Tolos text on the Hub City Spartan Burgers text line that I've got to get to in the very next segment. We can continue Overreaction Monday, Tolos, or we can get into the biggest results from the weekend that we didn't see coming, like Oregon taking down Penn State, as well as the Upset Picks Challenge. I'll let you Tolos decide. If you keep interacting, we'll keep the Overreaction Monday going. It's completely up to you. Next, right here on the Fan Upstate.
and Diesel on the Fan Upstate.
Well, Tolos, the upset pick challenge, the upset picks challenge standings are posted at the Fan Upstate on Twitter, on X, on Facebook. Again, at the Fan Upstate. If you want to know where you are on the leaderboard, go check us out. Make sure you give us a like and a follow on Facebook, on X. And congratulations to those of you who are on the board. I did not have my team hit this past week. Thanks a lot, Central Florida. I'm still on the board, but again, if you don't hit, you lose points. Also, Dakota, Tigers, Dakota, I do have Dan B working on your issue. So hopefully we can get that resolved and figure out what exactly is going on in terms of the picks that you sent in. And that's just a good reminder to Tolos. If you ever feel like we made a mistake or messed up, we do, believe it or not. So let us know on the text line, the Hub City Spartan Burgers text line, if you feel like there was an error. Dan, believe it or not, does make errors, 1 or 2 a year. So we're working on that. Tigers, Dakota. Texter says, my overreaction is I think Shula finally woke up in the second half Saturday and realized he has one of the best athletes in the country at quarterback and turned him loose. We'll see how it goes. That comes from Keith and TR. Keith and TR, not Teeth and TR. Texter says, Bryce didn't give up a punt or a touchdown. Bryce didn't allow a 61-yard punt return. Bryce didn't force only 3 interceptions. Bryce didn't give up 103 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. Joey, I realize that, but guess what? That's also part of the reason you're in the situation you're in. I'm not saying any of those things are Bryce Young's fault, going back to the previous segment talking about the Panthers, but guess what, man? When you have good quarterbacks, they can go down and do this thing called score. And Bryce Young just hadn't figured out how to consistently go down and do this thing called score. So I understand. I'm not saying the defense is great, special teams is great. I'm with you. But at the end of the day, Bryce Young, do you feel like that guy at quarterback gives you the best chance to win? Do you really feel that way as a Panther fan? I don't know. I don't know that you do, man. I don't know. Let's see. On the Hub City Spartan Burgers text line, oh my goodness, a lot to get to. RJ says, Matt LaFleur needs to figure things out about when to be aggressive and conservative on offense. Should have gone for it on the 4th and 2 at midfield in the first half. And you know, I think there's a lot to be said about where the Packers are now after losing to the Browns and then tying with the Cowboys. I don't think it's like a huge concern. The Packers are still a really good team. I definitely don't think it's time to be already looking for the Panther, the panic button. But look, there's NFL teams that have stretches of football where they're not great. And I think based on what you saw in the first couple of weeks with the Packers, you saw a lot of promise. And then you get Micah Parsons in. Micah Parsons was pretty much irrelevant last night, other than the one tackle that he made on Dak right there on the chase down that may have prevented Dak from running in for the touchdown. That was a huge play. But other than that, Micah really didn't have his presence felt. So, look, the Packers will be just fine. I really do believe they'll be just fine. Let's see. Texter says you could be a mid-tier NFL quarterback and do, or he asked the question, could a mid-tier NFL quarterback do better than Bryce Young? I don't think so. I think if the players around Bryce were better, he'd play better. And again, I don't disagree with that. Every quarterback in the history of planet Earth and the sport of football needs good players around them. Not denying that. But there are also quarterbacks, Texter, who elevate those around him. And Bryce Young just doesn't do that. So if you've got a guy who you feel like is your franchise guy, but in order to be successful, you have to make everything around him perfect, boy, I don't know if that's the best plan because, man, in the NFL, it's the war of attrition. You just, like, injuries happen. Things happen. Players get hurt. Players get traded. Players get mad. I mean, look at A.J. Brown putting out Bible verses because he's not getting targets. It happens. So if that's your plan as an organization or franchises to say, look, we've got to have this perfect, this beautiful picture around Bryce Young in order for this guy to be successful, I think that's a dangerous place to live. I'm not saying don't surround him with talent, but at the same time, I am saying I don't know if Bryce is the guy that elevates those around him. You look at the history of the sport, even in basketball, you look at the greats, the all-time greats, they had the ability to elevate those around them, right? Michael Jordan's, LeBron's, the Patrick Mahomes of the world. I mean, you lost Tyreek Hill. He goes to Miami. And the next season, everybody's like, oh, Patrick Mahomes doesn't have Tyreek Hill. There's no way he'll be able to make it. And they win the Super Bowl. Like, good players, great players, elevate those around them. I'm not saying by any means, Texter, that this Panthers organization and roster is where it needs to be. I'm not saying that. But I just don't watch Bryce Young and feel great about it. I just don't feel great about it. I just don't. Joey says this team is terrible. Offense is a B line. Defense is a flat 0. Special teams only bright spot is the rookie kicker, says Joey. Texter from the 919 says Clemson needs to fire Dabo and hire Tony Elliott back. Boy, what a big win for Tony Elliott in Virginia. Right now, 4-1 on the season. In the top 25, we looked at the AP top 25 back in the 4 o'clock segment. What a monstrous win for Tony Elliott. So we've heard that. We've actually texted, you're not the first person to bring that up today on the show, to fire. I think somebody on the stream brought it up earlier. Fire Dabo and bring Tony Elliott back. It's tough times right now in Clemson. Who's your daddy on the Hub City Spartan Burgers text line? Text in and says, are Dewey's takes getting better or is it just me? Who's your daddy? I think you might be on to something there. What did he have? 3 takes today? And I think I agreed with all 3 of them. I kind of felt the same way as you. Like, you agree with Dewey and you're kind of feeling weird. Like, you got to go take a shower, right? It feels weird. It really does. I don't know. He did. I agreed with him on the Carolina and then the Braves, and then I don't remember what the other point was, but I'm with you. I'm with you. Texter says, loved giving Burns their first region loss at the new stadium. Go Cavs. Texter, that was a big, big, big win for Dorman on Friday. Would love for you to put your name on the text so I know who you are, but, a lot of people don't, so I get it. But it was, to your point, a big, big win for Dorman on Friday night. T-Experience says, I be the pappy for that Tolo fill-in spot. T-Experience, man, you do call in a lot. You do. You'd be up there. I think you'd do a good job filling in. I think T-Experience already wanting to fill in for Diesel since he's out this week. Madcraft wanting to. Dewey on the stream says he wanted to fill in. I just don't know if we could take 4 hours of Dewey. Our ratings would either plummet or hit all-time highs, and for all the wrong reasons. I just don't know which ones. I don't know which direction it would go. By the way, Tolos, be careful. Be safe out there. The rain coming down here in Greenville on this side of town. Not sure where you are, where you're driving right now in the upstate, but it is coming down where I am in Greenville. Looking out the window, I guess that big bad hurricane that was going to hit last week. This is all we're getting, right? I think it took a turn. What'd they say? One hurricane caused the other hurricane to turn? Is that where we are now? Hurricanes making other hurricanes turn, I guess. So be careful out there. Be careful out there, Tolos. It is coming down on this side of Greenville pretty well. If it is bad in certain areas, flash flooding or anything like that, let us know on the Hub City Spartan Burgers text line so I can let other Tolos know as well. Still 1 year ago when we were, trying to figure out what was going on after Hurricane Helene, because it was 1 year ago. We were sitting here and having like all these people from the electric cooperatives on, and you Tolos, some of you were getting power back on that Monday. It was a weird time 1 year ago. One texter from the 764 says, I like ties. Well, that's weird. That is really, really weird if you like ties. I don't know why you would as a sports fan. What does it accomplish? to tie in a sport. Texter says from the 590, I left this out on my call, but what is a Bad Bunny? I believe Bad Bunny is a artist that's performing at the halftime show. I did see that. I don't know who Bad Bunny is. Is it a he or a she or both or it? I don't know. Evidently, he or she or it, whatever it is pretty popular. Texter says, I like ties. As a Panther fan, it's not a loss. Okay, fair point. That's the only texter from the 706. That's the only text I've seen where I can agree on it. For the Panther fans' sake, it's not a tie. Another texter says the Panthers need a tank for Sellers. I don't know about that, man. I don't know about that. You've already, not saying like no disrespect there to Sellers, but you've already in recent years given up so much for Bryce Young. It was a huge risk for what turned out to look like not much reward, right? So I don't know. I don't know if you've got to really figure out what your plan is as an organization and franchise. But I don't know. I don't know that Lenore Sellers is the right answer. Dewey said Rob Brown knows him. Talking about Bad Bunny, is they talked about him for a whole segment today. Of course they did. Does that surprise you, Dewey, that they talked about a guy named Bad Bunny for a whole segment? Not surprised at all there. Dan B says Cole email sent. Dakota, Tigers Dakota. We think we've got you back rocking and rolling, my friend. So your points, according to Dan B, will be reflected next week in the Upset Picks Challenge. So sorry about that. It was a little mistake, but we'll get you back on that leaderboard. RJ says not an overreaction, but want to shout out Dorman offensive line and defensive line for how those groups made an impact in Friday's win at Burns. Texter says this comes from Corn Chip. Must have gotten lucky. All I got was rain sprinkles from Pelham Road to Easley, and now I can see the sun poking through the clouds. How about that? Because it is dark here and coming down pretty good. So maybe it's passing over pretty quick. Texter says, I thought Bad Bunny was Jelly Roll's wife's name. I thought that too, Texter, but maybe it's just Bunny. I don't know that it's Bad Bunny. I thought the same thing, though, when I heard it for the first time. I did think I thought that was Jelly Roll's wife, like you said. Guess it just shows how ignorant I am in that realm of music. I don't know. I'm not, whatever Bad Bunny is or does, I don't know. Is that where we are, though? Is Bad Bunny so popular, or we just can't find anybody else to perform at the Super Bowl halftime show? Then we're having people called Bad Bunny do it? That's interesting. Sounds desperate to me, right? Sounds a little bit desperate. So a good overreaction Monday. Tolos, appreciate each of you. A lot of text today on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line. Well, the MLB postseason is set. If you did not know, if you have not heard, I'll tell you what the matchups are in the very next segment. And if your team if you're a Mets fan, I got bad news for you. You choked again. Bad news, Mets fans. MLB postseason set next. Well, the MLB postseason, it's set, and if you're a Braves fan, you're upset. But you're not as upset as, let's say, a New York Mets fan. What do I mean? Well, the Braves have stunk all season. You've known pretty much all season that the Braves aren't making the postseason. However, if you're a New York Mets fan, man, I'm sorry, but it's been miserable for you. It's been miserable for you. And you were the best team in baseball in the summer. And we were talking about this Mets team being poised to make a run. But no. That all came crashing down as we've just come to know the Mets as the team that chokes down the stretch now. And we love it. So that does make our lives a little bit better as Braves fans. And to Dewey's point earlier, my life would be a lot better if I saw news in the next couple of days that Brian Snitker and the Braves are no longer a, thing. Because as a Braves fan, this year was rough. Last year was rough. Injuries, I get it last year. I understand, but I do not, and I repeat, do not want Brian Snitker back in Atlanta. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know many Braves fans that do. I did like seeing the fire the other night between him and Matt Olson when they both got ejected. That was cool and everything. It was cool to see, them still this passionate and competitive late in the season. But ultimately, it doesn't do enough for you. And I just don't know. I think it's time. I've heard a lot of rumors and speculation throughout the course of the year that Brian Snitker was going to retire. Don't know if it's true or not, but boy, I hope so. I think it's time for a fresh message in Atlanta. But the MLB postseason as is set, rather. Philip on YouTube says, longest season of my life as a Braves fan. No doubt, Philip, it was a rough one. It was a really, really rough one. And I've never remembered, to your point, Philip, a Braves season lasting as quick as this one did. It was just bam, just like that, quick and over, because you just knew from the very get-go this team was done. They never got better. They never improved. So I'm with you. It was a tough year. So now the postseason picture in Major League Baseball is set. You have some games starting tomorrow. The wild card at 1 o'clock, the Tigers and the Guardians. The ALWC, American League wild card, game 1 starts tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Detroit and the Cleveland Guardians. Also at 3 o'clock tomorrow, the Padres and the Cubs will go at it. 8 o'clock tomorrow night. Get the popcorn ready, man. I hadn't been excited about baseball this season because, as we just talked about, my team has sucked, but I am super excited about this one. Red Sox, Yankees tomorrow night in a wild card. Are you kidding me? A wild card series between the Red Sox and the Yankees. Sign me up. And then at 9 o'clock tomorrow, the Reds and the Dodgers. And that is your Tuesday slate. On Wednesday, pretty much the same. So in the American League, you have the Tigers, Guardians, Red Sox, and Yankees as wild cards. In the National League, you have the Cubs, the Dodgers, the Padres, and the Reds going at it. Your teams getting buys in the American League, Toronto and Seattle. Seattle will wait on the winner of Cleveland and Detroit. Toronto will await the winner of Boston and New York. In the National League, Milwaukee will wait on the winner of San Diego and Chicago, and the Philadelphia Phillies will wait on the winner of the Dodgers and the Cincinnati Reds. So I think you're going to have, number one, some really intriguing matchups in the wild card. I mean, that Tigers-Guardians game's fascinating for several reasons, but just of how good the Tigers were all season long and almost had a Mets-like collapse and made it into the postseason, unlike the New York Mets. By the way, the Mets did miss the postseason, just in case you hadn't heard me say that once. I'll say it as many times as I have to. That does make today a little bit easier. But Detroit-Cleveland's going to be fun. Boston-New York's by far the best series of the wild card, just because it's two of the biggest brands, rival. I mean, are you kidding me? Sign us up. But a lot of good teams. World Series, the road to the World Series officially begins tomorrow. So it's that time of year. where to fill in during the week with college football, you'll have the MLB postseason beginning again. It begins tomorrow, does the wild card game. 4 wild card games tomorrow, 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock. A slam-packed, jam-packed day in Major League Baseball. A lot of Tolos letting me know that Bad Bunny is, like Brandon Burnett says, this Bad Bunny guy doesn't sing English music. That's good to know. So non-English artist in the Super Bowl halftime show. Okay. Keith on Facebook says, Bad Bunny, USA Spanish hip-hop artist, very popular right now. As a DJ, I get requests from him all the time. Check me out at the Trophy Club in Greenville Sunday, Monday, Tuesday night. So go check out Keith. Appreciate you watching the show, Keith, as always. I don't listen to that type of music, so I really honestly did not know who Bad Bunny was. I get that he or she or whatever it is, not being disrespectful. I don't know. Is Bad Bunny a he? Is that what we've decided on? I get that he must be ultra popular, but is that where we are, that's our best choice for the Super Bowl halftime show? Sounds pathetic to me. I mean, goodness gracious. It just seems like it gets worse and worse every year. RJ on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line says, the Yankees are limiting ticket sales to residents of New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Pennsylvania. They must be scared of Red Sox fans taking over their stadium. You think that's what it is? You think so? Maybe so. I mean, you're trying to create a home field advantage, I guess, right? That'll be fun, though. That'll be fun. Yankees, Red Sox in the wild card. Are you kidding me? Jersey Joe says, quit picking on my Mets. Look, they're easy to pick on, Jersey Joe. They collapse every year. It's like the Dallas Cowboys, man. They're really good in the regular season, but you can always count on them to have an epic collapse. The New York Mets, Dallas Cowboys. What's the difference? Really, there's not one. A sports soundtrack for you Tolos next. even a sports soundtrack. How about let's get started with a little college football from over the weekend? How about Ole Miss, man? What a win. You just heard the highlights for Ole Miss and the win over LSU. Just a monstrous win. Look, we all saw LSU against Clemson back in week 1, and we knew that LSU was going to be good. We just didn't really know how good. And I don't know if it surprised you or not, Tolos, but seeing Ole Miss play as good as they did, especially offensively, against that good an LSU defense, I was impressed, man. I really was impressed. I thought those guys played tremendously well. Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, you never know like what you're gonna get, right? And you truly saw that like this is a program that's going somewhere. And I didn't know, after Jackson Dart left a season ago, I didn't know where this program would be. I wasn't super high on them this year. I mean, I wasn't sitting here thinking they were going to go beat LSU, but again, Lane Kiffin has proven year in and year out that he's going to have his team ready. And, man, that was fascinating to watch on Saturday. So we start the sports soundtrack with a little bit of a play-by-play. What about Tony Elliott and what he said post-game Friday night after the big win over Florida State? So that's Tony Elliott after the win over Florida State on Friday night. And look, you try not to make too much of one win or one game, but Virginia beating Florida State 46-38 on Friday night in double overtime, I think it does say a lot. I think it says a lot, number one, about Tony Elliott, what kind of coach he is. Number two, what kind of person he is, because that guy was dealt a rough hand to start his coaching career at Virginia. The stuff that he had to go through, we talked about it earlier in the show, but goodness gracious, what a tough start that guy had at Virginia. And now a few years later, for that team to be 4-1, they just beat Florida State, who had a marquee win back in the early part of the season over Alabama. Says a lot, man. It really does. It says a lot, and that's pretty impressive for me, in my opinion. Hats off to Tony Elliott. I know a lot of Clemson fans happy about that, seeing their former Tiger do things in a big, big way on Friday night. What about a little Jerry Jones for you? Was he upset seeing what happened with Micah last night? Very simple. Dak was indispensable in my mind, and Micah wasn't. Again, hear that again. Now, I do think right there, while we're all critical of Jerry Jones, I think he said something right in that audio you heard, and I actually agree with him in something that he said there. He said 3 words that I think are very critical, very important. We can all make fun of Jerry Jones for making stupid moves over the years, and rightfully so on a lot of them, especially with, like getting rid of really good head coaches. But one more time, did you hear what he said there? In my mind, keywords that were spoken there, Dak was indispensable. Micah wasn't. Plain and simple. Jerry Jones liked what he saw last night. He also went on to say you can go and base your judgment off of what we did. Watch last night's game. Pretty much saying that he felt like he won last night, even though Micah Parsons had that one play at the very end where he did tackle Dak Prescott to keep Dak from scoring right there. And you know what, man? That was recorded as a sack. That was recorded as Micah Parsons' only sack last night. I just don't know if I agree with that being a sack. It didn't look like it. Didn't look like a sack, but evidently the ruling is if it's at the line of scrimmage and it's no gain, then it's a sack. And I don't know if that's right. I mean, that's what I heard this morning, and I just didn't realize that. And Tolo's out there at 844-326-3663. Did you realize that if a quarterback is tackled for no gain, it's a sack in the NFL? I think that's the dumbest thing in the world. Maybe another rule that the NFL needs to fix. So explain to me how no gain is a sack. I just don't know. No, that's not that shouldn't be the case. That should not be the case. If you lose yardage, sure. But if Dak Prescott last night was marked back at the line of scrimmage and you're ruling that a sack, I think that's a wolf call. Here's what Dak said when it came to what it felt like ending in a tie. It's a weird feeling. It is a weird feeling. I'll even say, as a fan experiencing a tie, it feels pretty much as close to a loss as you can get. I mean, you didn't lose the game, but what is that going to do for you when it comes to postseason and tiebreakers? And that's a conference game, ladies and gentlemen. Like, that game last night just meant so much. Two teams in the same conference, and you play this near 4-hour game. It's spectacular. A lot of offense, a lot of fireworks. Dak was phenomenal. Jordan Love was really good. George Pickens was really good. Mr. Big Helmet for the Packers was really good. Dobbs, I believe it was. He had the big helmet on, the Guardian cap. It looked like one of those big blow-up prank helmets. But, I mean, come on, back and forth, 4 hours, all that money, time investment, and all that. And we're just going to end it in a tie. Roger Goodell should have been fired. Where's my Dewey sounder at? Where's my do I still have that? Dewey always calls for everybody to be fired. But, my goodness, Roger Goodell, after that last night, if he's sitting there watching that incredible game for it to end in a tie.
Y'all need to be fired.
That's right. Roger Goodell, I'm calling it. Come on, do something about that. That is a horrendous way to end a football game. It really is. All right, what did Tony Gonzalez say about Russell Wilson post-game? Have you heard this? This is it's pretty strong words here from his former teammate. Oh. Oh my word. My gosh. I mean, how much more brutal could that be? I feel bad. Look, I've never felt bad for a guy who makes millions of dollars in Russell Wilson, but I feel bad after hearing that. I mean, those guys just absolutely bagged on him. How about the very first part of that audio? I hope we have. Did you hear that? Played himself out of a Hall of Fame. That is brutal. That is, I don't care if it's true or not, but that is so brutal to be able to say those words about, and two guys, by the way, who were Russell Wilson's former teammate. Are you kidding me? That's rough. I feel bad for the guy. I mean, I really look, are they right? Probably so. But they were a little too harsh in my mind. I mean, a little too harsh. That is, whew, tough times. Tough times for old Russell Wilson. High praise, though, for one quarterback at the college ranks from Ryan Day. Bright future ahead of him for Julian Satan. That's Ryan Day talking about his quarterback. I know a lot of our Ohio State fans and Tolos in the audience are happy to see the win on Saturday. Tell you who wasn't happy, Mike Elko. Did you hear this audio? Elko fired up, man. His questions he's getting from his beat reporters, his beat writers are not good enough. Got to step it up. And another mad coach at a press conference. We go to Kirby Smart. So Kirby Smart, that was the last question, the last answer he gave when he was asked about his 1-7 record against Alabama. I'll be honest with you, that surprised me a little bit to hear that. Like when you hear that out loud, 1-7. Kirby Smart's one of the best coaches, if not the best coach in college football, and the guy's 1-7 against Bama. That is wild. But he did have high praise for Ty Simpson earlier in the presser. Just beat us. Sometimes you just get beat, right, Kirby? Who did not get beat? Aaron Rodgers, here's what he said post-game in the noon. No, not noon. 9:30, the early game overseas, right? Aaron happy, big win. And look, I hate to admit this, the Steelers looked good the other day. The Steelers actually looked good yesterday, and their defense, man, they're flying around. They're playing hard, and Steelers are a pretty good team. Pretty good team. I hate to say it. I don't know if they're Super Bowl contenders or not, but hey, we've got 2 NFL games tonight. By the way, if you did not know, 2 NFL games. I'll give you my thoughts. We'll talk about those 2 games in the very last segment. But Grayson Mann joined us earlier in the show of TigerNet.com. I know a lot of you Tolos already know who Grayson is because he's fantastic. We have him on every single Monday. But in case you missed it, an interview replay with Grayson Mann next right here on the Fan Upstate.
844-326-3663. That's 844-FAN-PHONE. This is Wire to Wire with Cole, Bryson, and Diesel on the Fan Upstate.
Every single Monday at this time, we bring on Grayson Mann of TigerNet.com to talk Clemson football. I am solo today, so Grayson, you're stuck with me the entire segment. Thoughts and prayers to you before we start. But Clemson on a bye this weekend. What possibly could a Clemson beat writer do when his team's not playing?
So Saturday, I went out and played some golf
Wow.
with excellent Shoulders of the Roar, Toby Corson, Tiger Illustrated, and Griffin Barfield of a Clemson SI, and we shot 5 under through 18. Pretty solid performance, I would say.
Best ball, or what was it? I mean, how'd you perform?
We're doing a best ball. I think I did okay. I think that my driving game has improved significantly, Cole, and that was an issue starting out. I don't think that my short game is where it should be, but overall, solid performance from myself on Saturday. I felt like I contributed to the team, hit a couple clutch shots, couple clutch putts to secure some birdies.
I'm proud of you, man. I'm proud of you. Not a bad day on the course there. Clemson obviously on a bye, and here we are now, Grayson, on the 29th day of September with Clemson 1-3, looking to make something of this season. You've had some time this past weekend to reflect on the start for the Tigers. What do you feel like's the biggest takeaway in your mind from what you saw in those first 4?
Yeah, the word that I keep using is jarring. And I think it's no longer this shock value of, man, I can't believe Clemson has dug itself in such a hole. You sort of use the week to look back at past problems. And I think for Clemson, a lot of it was the same issues talking of the defense isn't where it should be, some of the technique, maybe the receivers, you go down the list. And there was always a short or a small fix that Sweeney used to sort of patch a hole in a tire, if we'll use that analogy. And this year, it feels like everything's come together at the wrong time. And LSU, you could sort of make the justifications, or if you're a fan, you're hoping that's a really good LSU team.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're discovering it's probably not a national championship contender, but certainly one that can compete for the playoff. Troy was probably when the concerns really started, for at least on my end, that, man, this may not be a very good football team.
Sure.
And so I sort of, as I reflect on the last 4 games, Cole, and what makes me excited about the next 8, and it's weird to say 1-3, why would you be excited? But this is a new era for Clemson football. It's no longer the giant of the sport that should be considered to be a title contender every single season. There's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of weeds in the backyard that need to be trimmed. There's a lot of care that needs to be put. Not that there isn't, but there's just a lot that needs to be fixed. I don't think there's one easy answer where Clemson's 4-0 or 3-1 instead of 1-3. And so that was my main takeaway. I rewatched every single game and came away with the same issues. Quarterback play isn't where it should be. A lot of whiffs defensively. Not the biggest fan of some of Garrett Riley's decision-making and play calls, but overall I don't think he's public enemy number 1. So there's just a lot going on, and I think that there's an interesting perspective on how Clemson attacks these next 8 games. I think UNC is going to tell us a lot. This team's had a lot of time to simmer the result and accept the fact that this is not a playoff season. How does that team respond moving forward in a game that people will watch more because they're waiting to see which coach collapses further into the hole?
Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com, joins us on the Fan Upstate every Monday at this time. 97.1 FM in Spartanburg, 97.7 FM in Greenville, and on the free Odyssey app, as well as iHeartMedia app. Grayson, when you look at where Clemson is, I want to know, because we're either in one of 2 spots. The time you've had to reflect, where do you stand? Where do you land? We're either in, this is just a bad year, a blip on the radar, and Clemson's going to be back to where they have been, contending for national championships in a couple of seasons, or we are either in, this is the beginning of the end when it comes to the Dabo Swinney era at Clemson. We're in one of the 2. We don't know right now which one we're in, but the fact of the matter is we're in one of the 2, and there's a 50% chance, a 50% chance we're in either one of them. Where do you think we are right now at this point based on what you've seen?
I guess I'll push back a little bit. I think the beginning of the end was in 2021.
Okay.
I think when Clemson started 4-3 and you really started to see the cracks forming and Clemson wasn't contending for the ACC, and that started to become a consistent trend. Obviously, they reclaimed their crown in 2022, but then you have 2023, another 3-loss season that turned into 4. You lost to South Carolina multiple times in this stretch. I feel like we've been tumbling down a mountain, and occasionally Sweeney would find himself as he's fallen catching this stump. And that was either Matt Luke, that was either the perceived Tom Allen move, that was Garrett Riley. So I do think that, Cole, when you look at it, Clemson's been in this program fall. It's just been very slow, and they were still able to find a way to make a playoff. They were still able to reach multiple ACC championships, but it's all kind of crashed. So I guess you could classify this as the end, and a rebirth is going to be needed when we go to 2026 and forward. So I haven't viewed this as, this came out of nowhere. I think the problems have been very evident. This was just supposed to be that year that, if not now, when? And so I guess that second point is true, is that there's not this sudden fix of 2026. I think, they're going to be contenders. They'll be back into it. There's questions moving forward. So I do think that the problems have been there. I don't think 2025 was, I viewed it as it's either going to be a title contending team and anything else is viewed short of a disappointment. I didn't expect 1-3, but it is sort of the culmination of a lot of issues.
Sure. No, I think that's well said. I'm with you. What do you believe right now the vibes are inside the program in terms of what you've heard, what you feel for Clemson fans out there that are just curious as to where this team is mentally? I mean, do you feel like they're in a better spot, or if you know of any riffraff or anything where you feel like there's been some upset guys inside the program?
I think last week's fascinating, Cole, and I'm so excited for tomorrow and just to see what's the tenor of Dabo Sweeney. As everyone's had a long time, and 2 weeks doesn't feel like a long time, but Syracuse was not this Saturday, but it's been a while since we've seen Clemson play on the field. So there's been time to swallow that tough pill. And it felt like on Monday and Tuesday, we got a lot of behind the scenes conversations with the players where we got to hear about how the team meeting went, how emotional it was, how raw. People were getting their feelings out. People were getting sort of just addressing the elephant in the room, and things were said. And it was a very honest conversation from what we've heard. And so I think, Cole, when I think about where this team is moving forward, it's either going one or two directions. There's either going to be total checkout or there's going to be a rally. And what does that rally look like in terms of wins? I don't know. But what I've seen on the field and why you've seen a lot of chatter on social media, questions from the media, is about that effort specifically. Where is that going to lie against North Carolina team that you really, in all fairness, should be beating? Watching this team, there's a lot more issues with Bill Belichick than I'd say are with Clemson's program. They're in two different spots, obviously, talent-wise, and that's part of the big issue. But there's some weeds. If there's some weeds in Clemson's house, there are some animals that shouldn't be resting in Belichick's house. There's a raccoon in the attic, and you're panicking with a broom trying to get it out of the roof.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of Saturday's fascinating for a lot of reasons, and that's partially why.
And that brings us to Saturday as we start looking ahead, Grayson, to Saturday's matchup in Chapel Hill. Clemson on the road with this 1-3 start. You feel like this could be a game where you're going against a bad North Carolina team. Maybe we start to see a trend where this offense starts to figure things. I'm not calling for an App State game a season ago, to that effect, but a game in the sense of this offense looks drastically improved. Maybe that has to do with them being better. Maybe that has to do with North Carolina being bad.
Maybe you do get one of those. I mean, the Power 4 margins would tell us that Clemson's in for a comfortable victory on Saturday, but I guess you truly do never know. We have Ludacris performing at 9:45 in the morning, and I'm not a big Ludacris fan, but I know that there are people that would rather probably see him at 7:45 p.m. instead of 7:45 a.m. Interesting thing there, obviously off track, but I do see this as a game, Cole, and I hate to call it a must-win when the season's not. This is not a win for a playoff game. This is not a win for positioning in the ACC championship. this is a win where I think on paper there's a clear coaching deficiency, and it's weird to say that about Bill Belichick, but this is a very poorly coached UNC football team. Rewatch their game against UCF this morning. There's guys running into each other. There's just a lack of communication on all fronts. That's a big mess that Belichick's got to clean up in North Carolina. So for Clemson, you go in there, there's a lot, I think, more wrong with them than wrong with the Tigers. And there's a game that you have to win to go in there, restore some confidence. If it's bad now, I can't imagine that conversation Monday morning when we're talking about a really bad North Carolina. I think the average margin of defeat between the last two games, I think they've been outscored a total of 84-23. I mean, they have not been good at all. At least Clemson's had the losses of, okay, well, we've had a walk-off field goal and a 7-point loss to LSU to look at. North Carolina's got the brakes beaten off of them. And so that's to UCF and TCU. So there's some certain factors there. I just see this as a game that Clemson has to win. It would be pretty inexcusable if they don't.
A little bit of a format breaker here, Grayson. Right now, off the cuff, who's the best team in the ACC?
Oh, goodness. I would have to be inclined to say Miami right now.
Okay.
Even though I'm a big Georgia Tech believer, I do think they escaped on Saturday in Winston-Salem. There was an absolute ref show over there with the offsides call. Robbie Ashford was furious, and rightfully so. But Miami, to their credit, they've taken care of business, and that's been my biggest critique with Mario Cristobal, is that sometimes in the games that they really should just comfortably stride by, they're barely hanging on, and then eventually someone kicks them off the cliff, and Miami tumbles and tumbles. Their defense has gotten a lot better. Carson Beck's playing really solid football. I think Florida State is, unfortunately, Friday night's tough. I'm not going to give them too much grief for a loss to a Tony and Elliott Virginia team that is not going to get enough respect nationally. That's a good Virginia team. Chandler Morris can absolutely sling it. And Friday night on the road is difficult. I think Clemson fans were worried about that Louisville game. It's exactly why. Exactly what happened on Friday with the Cavaliers and Elliott. Big win for him, by the way. I know a lot of Clemson fans have been pining for him to be back on campus, but he looks like he's building something special there.
It's really interesting when you look at the landscape of the ACC, Grayson. There's some interesting stories, and certainly North Carolina, one of those for all the bad reasons. You know, I think this whole North Carolina thing's fascinating because when you and I were at ACC kickoff, I had a couple of North Carolina players on, and one of the defensive backs that I had on, I asked them just straight up. I said, look, do you think this Bill Belichick guy, as old as he is, can come in and turn this program around? And he looked at me and he asked me, he said, well, what do you think? And I said, I don't really think he can. I said, I think he's the best coach ever in the National Football League, but it's a different sport. It literally is. And to be fair, it's been 1 year. I don't know how long Bill Belichick is going to give it at North Carolina, Grayson, but do you see this thing? You talk about Clemson turning it around. Do you see North Carolina turning it around under Bill Belichick?
Certainly not this year. I don't envision some 7-8 game win streak that starts with the Tigers. Maybe they surprise me on Saturday, but UNC was entering this season with a massive talent deficiency. I know Belichick went on a shopping spree in the transfer portal, but that was a lot of the leftovers just because of the nature of when he signed on.
Yeah.
All of the best players were really gone. And so they're having to pick. Basically, everyone, the tables were reserved at Logan's Roadhouse and Texas Roadhouse, and he was having to go to some C-tier steakhouse across the street, and his steak was undercooked. So UNC was at a depth deficiency to begin with, at quarterback, at wide receiver, defensive back, and you saw that in that TCU game where that transfer from, I believe, North Dakota State had a field day against one of their DBs. Yeah. I do think Belichick's the greatest coach on the planet. Smart individual, cerebral individual, and obviously a lot of the baggage that he carries may not be worth the wealth of knowledge and experience that he brings, and I think we're seeing that a little bit over there. It's a little strange to have your 24-year-old girlfriend on the sideline with you and warm-ups drafting, where I can imagine a player's got a question. Hey, coach, oh, you're busy. Let me wait a second.
Sure.
But it's going to be interesting. I could totally see, it depends also, to answer your question, Cole, what does North Carolina want to be? Do they want to be a playoff contender? Do they want to win 8-9 games a season? We don't know that conversation that they brought. I know Belichick says they want to be the 33rd NFL team or professional team.
Right.
that pipeline is a little bit scrapped, rusty right now. I'm sure that travel would be pretty brutal. So I guess it just comes down to, what does North Carolina want Bill Belichick to be? That's the ultimate question.
It is. It is ultimate question. Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com. One more question for you. When you look at this Clemson team, is it completely, this is just a curiosity question here, is it completely out of the realm of possibility for any coaching changes to be made, even if this thing were to get worse midseason? Or would you say that you expect Dabo to, based on what you've heard, to wait until the season's over to evaluate everything?
A midseason coaching change doesn't really feel like that's his style.
Yeah.
That's never been his MO. There's no precedent where, even with like the Kevin Steele, West Virginia disaster, you waited till after the season. Wes Goodwin, you waited till after the season. Brandon Streeter, you waited till after the season. Now,
sure,
could it be made between the bowl game? Absolutely. If Clemson does make a bowl game, there has been plenty of precedent where he'll make a move, try to get him on campus. And at practice, Chris Rumpf and Matt Luke specifically were coaching in the Gator Bowl after those moves were made. So we could see that then. A massive overhaul, though, it just depends on where they are. If they're 5-7, maybe Sunday morning, we're getting press releases that certain people are being let go. But I think it would take either a nuclear disaster where, let's say, Clemson's 1-6 and there's no choice, or you wait till after the bowl game. I do expect changes to be made. I won't ever want to call from anybody's job, but I think with the way things are trending, there's going to have to be a change and shift in the program.
Grayson, how do you think Clemson, after this 1-3 start, can keep fans engaged? And I know fans will still buy tickets. I get that. But I mean, engaged to the point of where they were in the preseason. How do you keep or prevent fans from already wanting to know what's going to happen after the season while trying to keep them engaged in what could actually happen this season?
It's fascinating. I don't think the move will be made, but I think you make a change at certain positions and you start advertising the youth and the future of this program. And I think you and I both know where I'm going with this. You make a change of quarterback and you get fans to come in. How many times have we seen bad NFL teams that can't sell out a stadium? You bring in the rookie quarterback of the future and boom, you got thousands of extra seats
Giants
filled in
yesterday.
The Giants with Jackson Dart look like a completely different football team.
Yep.
Although Russell Wilson was playing terrible, but they beat the Chargers, who were the best team besides Buffalo in the AFC. So you try to advertise the future. Maybe there's more time for a guy like Amari Adams. Maybe Tristan Smith gets on the field more. Gideon Davidson, who, to Clemson's credit, and to be fair, Davidson's looked lost out there when he steps onto the field. Hence the more playing time for Adam Randall, who hasn't been bad at all by any means. He's been pretty solid at tailback, but there's just a certain amount of, and obviously maybe if there's winning, they're going to be playing a good Florida State team, who I think will be in the top 25. They'll play a really good Duke team. They'll play a really good SMU team. There's going to be some intrigue because that's the ACC championship rematch. There'll be Clemson fans in Columbia for South Carolina, but it's going to be tough moving forward. And it's letting a lot of air out of the tires when you have a team that was a national championship favorite in many circles. They're out of it before October hits the calendar. That's tough.
It is tough. And then I'll let you go with this one. You brought it up just now with position changes, especially at quarterback. Like if you were in Vegas right now and had a bet on it, do you actually think that's a possibility?
Now, this is the caveat to the quarterback argument is if we haven't seen him yet, that's a pretty damning statement on the backup and the confidence level.
Sure.
Dabo has been Cade's guy for a long time. And so and there's also the money involved, the NIL. It's tough to bench a quarterback that's making the top dollar on your team.
Yep.
So maybe if things get worse, we'll see 17. I've been advocating for it to not much success, just in terms of you got to get data for 2026. That's a completely different conversation for another time. But if we're having that conversation on September 29th in 2025, that season is not going well.
No, it hadn't. It has not. Making the trip. What are you looking forward to in Chapel Hill? You going to get out and explore any, Grayson?
So I got Tiger pregame in the morning for the Roar, so I got to kind of race over to the stadium and figure that part out. I've never been to Chapel Hill before for a football game. I've been to for basketball and been able to see that side of it. So I've been able to walk around campus. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So excited to return. Not looking forward to the drive Friday, but we'll be all right.
Sounds good, man. Appreciate you as always.
Appreciate you, man.
Absolutely. GraysonManTigerNet.com. You heard him right here on the Fan Upstate. If you missed any of it, you can go back and catch it on the free Odyssey app.
You're listening to the underground of sports talk radio, where we're not afraid to get dirty.
It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson on the Fan Upstate.
I'm Chuck Sanders. Here's the Sports Flash presented by Progressive. The Braves wrapped up the season with a 4-1 win over the Pirates. Chris Sale finishes at 7-5, 9 strikeouts over 5 2/3. Atlanta wraps up the season 76-86. The Patriots crushed the Panthers 42-13 in New England. The Patriots pulled away with 21 points in the second quarter. The Panthers dropped to 1-3, 0-3 away from home. New England's 2-2, 1-2 at home. Bryce Young held to 18 of 30 passing, 150 yards and a touchdown. Andy Dalton 5 of 6 passing, 58 yards and a TD. Young was replaced by Dalton with about 8 minutes left in the game. Marcus Jones returned to punt 87 yards for a touchdown. That sparked the Patriots' offense in the win. 2 touchdown passes for Drake May. He ran for another. The Panthers are back home this coming Sunday when they host Miami. The Fan Upstate's your home for Furman Paladins football and Burns High School football. Search the Fan Upstate on the TuneIn, Odyssey, and iHeartRadio apps. I'm Chuck Sanders on the Fan Upstate.
Set your kids up for a lifetime of financial success with Smart Start from Founders Federal Credit Union. Just like learning the rules of football, understanding money management is crucial. Founders Smart Start products and educational resources help teach kids the basics of saving, budgeting, smart spending. Give your young MVPs the skills they need to move the chains on their financial futures. Learn more at foundersfcu.com/smartstart. Federally insured by NCUA. Membership qualification required. Terms and conditions apply.
Mad World Haunted Attraction is now open. Experience haunted houses, mini golf, axe throwing, and much more. Located in Piedmont off I-85, exit 35. Get ready for 15 years of fear at Mad World. Buy your tickets now at madworldattractions.com.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't...
Final segment of the show, Tolos, and final opportunity for you to weigh in at 844-326-3663. We have not one, but two Monday night football games. I love it. I'll tell you what I don't love this time of year, looking out the window here in the Fan Upstate studios, and it's already dark. Yeah, not a fan. Not a fan. No. I do not like this time of year where it starts getting dark. I'm already looking forward to March. That's where I am. I want my daylight back. But at least we have some football on tonight to make things better. Who do we have? Cole, what are the games tonight? I hadn't had a chance to look. I've been busy at work. I actually don't get to talk about sports all day like you do. Well, glad you asked. 7:15. Oh boy, what a barn burner this is going to be. 7:15, a pair of two teams who are looking for their first win. I can't even say it without even. A pair of teams who are looking for their first win of the season, the Jets and the Dolphins. Boy, get the popcorn ready for this one. Jets, Dolphins, 7:15. Both teams are 0-3. They both know Owen pretty well. Owen who? 0-3 are the Jets and the Dolphins. That game at 7:15. Miami favored by 2.5 points. You know, what's interesting about this game is, like, there's talent on the field. You talk about Tyreek Hill. I like Breece Hall a lot. Really good player for New York. He's just been bottled up this year, man, especially in the last two games. He has been a non-factor. I'll be honest with you. I kind of lean Miami on this one, but boy, when you're betting on a team that's 0-3, you don't really have a lot of confidence, do you? And then you also have 8:15 tonight, Bengals and the Broncos. Now, here's a good game. Obviously, we know that this is not the two teams we would expect to be excited about if both were at full health. However, it's fun watching Bo Nix play football. I like Denver tonight. I don't know if I like Denver in the spread that they're laying tonight. Denver favored by 7.5 points at home tonight. Obviously, the Bengals 2-1 on the year. Broncos looking for their second win. They're 1-2 on the year, but they are 1-0 at home. I think it could be close. I like Denver tonight. I guess I like Miami. Again, it's hard really being confident in one or the other. But those are the two Monday Night Football games. Tolos, Jets, Dolphins, 7:15 at 8:15. Bengals, Broncos, and that is your Monday night slate. And then we have postseason baseball beginning tomorrow. A lot of fun and a lot of Tolos ready to get their upset picks in. That begins Wednesday, the Upset Picks Challenge. Don't forget about that. It's going to be a lot of fun, Tolos. Appreciate you. A fun show today. We'll talk to Jack Veltri tomorrow. And when I say a loaded show coming your way, I mean it. Hope you can spend it with me tomorrow right here on the Fan Upstate. Tolo.